Wasn't me.
Hey, Sarah. What's up, Brian? Madeline, B, Raphael, Mel, John, Bobby, Daniel, and Jorge. And Priscilla.
I think that's everyone.
Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can just jump right into this. So the first thing I was going to just go over was blocking. Does anybody want to explain blocking? You want me to just go ahead and jump in and do it?
Blocking is basically basically when you're just about to rehearse, so you know how the camera moves and how the actors are going to move during the scene.
Yep. So it's just like placing the actors, figuring out how they're going to move, figuring out how the camera's going to move or where the camera's going to be placed.
And sometimes the sometimes the sound operators will do the same.
Right. And they'll usually work around that with lighting, sound, and but mainly they usually start out with the camera and the actors, right? And then they work the other stuff around that. Or does it depend?
Depends.
Okay. Well, as you guys can see in the picture, it's more like the scene right here. They're showing how all the characters are looking. If you look at the upper left-hand side of it, you can see like where the characters are and where their eye line is headed. That's a little like arrow next to their circle. And that's showing where the camera is in relation to where they are in the scene. So blocking is used, usually leaves like marks where this guy knows to stand right there so that he comes into frame, and that has the guy with the bounce right behind him to keep the lighting good. So you usually set marks for your actors so they know where to stop, and then you set your camera either before or after. So you're either following them into that shot, coming in after them, or you're placing the shot there before they walk into frame like this one. It's basically just like a detailed map of how you're going to do the shot. And it gets very, like when there's a lot of movement and a lot of different things happening, they'll usually make something kind of like this, like a blocking diagram that shows kind of how they're anticipating the moves to be. And then when they get to the location, they kind of try to follow it as closely as they can. But of course, the location might not be exactly like this. Bigger productions will probably already have the location set, so they'll probably be able to actually make the diagram exactly like the location. But a lower budget production would probably have just like a guess of a general location of maybe this is like a classroom and the desks and whatever, and this is how they can move around. And then once they get the actual location, they kind of take that and adjust it as necessary for the space that they actually have.
So we were going to ask, like Jorge, Brian, when you guys are on sets, Daniel, when you are, when the blocking is happening and you do rehearsals, do you do it only immediately before, or do you do it like during rehearsals as well? Because we were wondering, because obviously you'd have to do it when you know where all the cameras are going to be and all the equipment's going to be, right? So you know exactly where to put them. So would that be able to be done in rehearsal?
No.
So only right
My
before.
opinion.
What was that?
In my opinion, no. I usually basically I would let the actors, if they're doing rehearsal, I'll let them have the space because they're gonna need as much space so they know their positions. Then you mark them down, their spaces, like with tape and stuff like that, with gaffer tape. Then you basically, but this is the way I do it myself. Mm-hmm. Anyone could be different. And then basically and then once they have their positions marked, then we set up around that. And then we basically just set up lights and then we basically block from there.
Yeah, I would imagine it must depend a lot on the location you have too, because that also dictates how much space you have to work with and that kind of thing.
And that's why it also depends on like the actual set, or because I've heard I've heard some that do it once they actually have the set, they have it for rehearsal and for shooting. But lower budget productions usually just have it for shooting, so it's obviously you just kind of have to make adjustments on set as necessary, right?
Yeah.
I normally don't do any sort of blocking before I get to the set.
Okay.
Because of dimensions and because of lighting and because of just things that can, like reflective surfaces that I can't move, like a window or whatever. What I focus is what I normally focus on is just get to the place, set the scene, do the blocking, and then work my way around it with the cameras. And then I talk to the cinematographer, and we find a way to shoot the scene. But normally I have most of the scenes that I want to make, they're in the back of my head. And especially if I have just a space, I always set the scene. I always work with the actors first, and then I talk to the camera, because how can I tell? You're gonna need the scene to be, again, it is more important to set the scene than to set the frame. It is always more important, because you're gonna set the scene in order to tell the story. And if the scene, because if you want to make an amazing shot, you want to have an amazing shot for everything, and it's getting in the way of the storytelling, then there's a problem. So that's why I always start with the actors and then move my way outwards.
Yep. And that's what one of the things we're saying, that they usually do blocking rehearsal, where they have the actors, or they just do it while there's a rehearsal. They'll kind of see how the actors are moving around to see what's natural, because they say, like, if you do it too much in advance before you even do it with rehearsal, this is just one of the tips somebody gave. If you do it too much in advance before the rehearsal, then like if you do it even before the rehearsal, you'll have no idea how the actors are going to actually be moving. You might set it up in your head, and then once you get to set, or once you get to the rehearsal, the actors move completely different, because what you thought of was kind of unnatural to the setting and things like that. So that's a good tip.
I always tell the director, I'll say, show me the action, and they'll rehearse it like a dry run real quick, so I can see the actual movement, so I can determine where I'm going to put cameras at, and how I'm going to capture each movement and whatnot. And then I use that to discuss whether or not, because sometimes you might be able to cut things out as far as movement goes. Some things just might be too difficult to capture on camera. So like I use those things to have discussions, like maybe we can't shoot that. Instead of maybe having him walk across the room, maybe we just have him go to the side a little bit or something else,
Yeah.
So that's how I develop my blocking setup. But it's just like Jorge said, I usually do it like on set or on location. I don't really try to do it beforehand.
So guys, a general estimate of what do you guys think the general time frame would be for how long it would take to block a scene before you can actually start shooting?
I don't
Generally, I know it's going to be very different depending on the set and how difficult the shot is, but just a general estimate.
Normally the first scene is the one that takes the longest. Whenever you get to a set, the first setup, the first everything, it's gonna take so much time, because all the crew is getting their shit together. You're talking to the actors. Everything's new for everybody, so they're getting to know the space. So it's always the first scene that's gonna take the longest in your shoot, unless of course it's a very easy shot, where you just have an establishing shot, if you will, but if you're going to start with a scene that's like way deep into the story, and you have to light it properly, and then that's going to take a long time. That can take up to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours even.
Okay. Ryan, Daniel, how long do you guys would you guys estimate it to, just to hear from like a different perspective as well?
I would say about the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Usually like the establishing shot for me is always like the hardest one, always. But once you start getting into like the inserts and the close-ups, it kind of gets easier. But yeah, the first shot is always the hardest.
Okay, interesting. And so would you guys say that you like, when would you, like, if you were the one scheduling it, when would you bring in the crew to start setting up, and when would you bring in the talent? And would you have the talent come in to also set up, or would you have stand-ins?
Oh, I would have the talent in makeup, and then I would have the crew, in my opinion, basically setting up everything on the side, like having lights on stands or unpacking stuff so it's on set.
Okay.
So
It
it's on.
depends. Not to keep going. I'm not gonna cut you off.
Yeah, you can go.
Well, I was gonna say like it depends on the need of the shoot. Like I have a shoot coming up this Sunday, and this is the first time where I have the actual cast showing up before, because we're shooting a fight scene. So I'm gonna have the cast show up before so we can kind of go over some of the movement, not blocking movement, but just fighting
Like choreography?
movements. Yeah. Before,
Gotcha.
and then we don't get access to the location until 12. So I have them show up like 2 hours beforehand, and we're gonna go over some of the fight movements before, and then the cinematographer is gonna show up around 11:30, and then from there we're gonna take a little break, and then while they're loading all the equipment in, we'll go back over some of the fighting techniques and some of the dialogue, and then move into it.
Cool. Yeah. Is this your first time doing a fighting scene?
Something one at this size, yes. I've done like small things here and there, but this is like the biggest one I've done.
Nice. Sounds cool. All right, cool. That's all I was just wondering. Jorge, did you have anything to add, or no?
I always have the heads of the departments every time we get to set, and I have never worked with stand-ins. And I always work with the actors, just because I normally talk to the actors before, and we get to the scene, and I don't over rehearse the scenes. Everybody knows what they have to do, and they just go in, and then they go to makeup, and that's how it is.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Does anybody have any comments or questions about blocking? I actually have a few tips that they were giving that I was going to share. They're saying when you're blocking, the main thing you want to think about is the space that you have. They were talking about shapes, which is circle, triangle, or square. Let me see if I can find this. They're saying like a circle feels more inviting, like the way you block it out. If it creates a circle within the frame, it's more inviting and it's a little more warm and friendly. If it's a square, it can feel more closed off. Let's see, blocking shapes. Kind of like that. Like there's triangles that make it seem more sharp or more aggressive, and there's certain psychological tricks to it. And then I can't really find it, but this is like the closest I'll get to it. So they made a triangle out of these three characters. There's Groot in the back, and then these two in the foreground. And it's showing like where your eyesight's going to be mainly. And that's what the shapes are about. And they had, so you have space, the shapes, and then lines, which is like in this picture, showing where the characters are looking or how they're positioned in the frame, either horizontally or vertically. You just want to always be paying attention when you're blocking where they're going to be looking, where the people are going to be looking. Because when you have all these characters looking at this character on the ground, the audience is going to be looking at that person. They're going to follow those people's eye lines to that person. Unless, of course, you keep them in focus and him out of focus, then they might stay on them. But normally, when you have characters look to something, especially if they're all looking in unison, then that'll draw the audience's attention to that thing, that item, that person, whatever they're looking at. So they're just saying keep those things in mind when you are blocking. They said one good thing to give characters when you're making a scene, when you're thinking about blocking, especially on set, is you might want to give them something to do called like giving them business, which would be like if somebody's behind a desk and maybe they're the CEO of a company and the person comes in, give them something to do, something to look at, a paper to mess with, something to do so that it doesn't just seem like they're sitting there waiting for their line. It doesn't always have to happen, but they say it's good to give them something, a little movement. Even if they're not moving in and out of frame or getting up or doing anything, it still will look like they're doing something if they're just kind of tapping a pen or a pencil against the ground. I mean, not the ground, against the desk, or writing something on a piece of paper. Because normally in situations, people tend to talk while they're doing other things. They're not just sitting there, standing, looking at each other. In certain situations, of course, they do, but they just said it's good to keep in mind that you don't always have to have your character just sitting there waiting. You can have them doing something, making it seem like they're still busy in their life while also having this scene.
You want the picture to be alive, not dead.
Yeah. And you definitely don't want it to be stale to where it's just one character waiting while the other character goes and then back and forth like that, because that won't seem natural. It'll seem weird. And
I forget what movie, but I just saw that last week where the guy was just in the background doing nothing, just staring off in space.
just waiting for his line.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Background acting is very important as well. You gotta pay attention to that. Sometimes the cinematographer will overlook that and not really notice or paying attention to like small details and variants and going on the back. You don't want to give too much time as far as directing your background actors, but like you don't want them to be doing some kind of, something. You'd be surprised. Like,
Oh, I know. Like even feature films, like the big AAA feature films have sometimes they'll have like an extra looking in the camera and stuff like that.
it's not even that. It's just like you'd be surprised on like of some of the performances a background actor can try to give. Like some of them will like try to outact the actual main actors by like speaking too loud or doing some kind, or just doing something that's just not natural, like in the background. So you kind of have to give, and you don't really notice it until you get into editing, and it kind of just pisses you off. But
I've been there.
yeah,
I've seen that, especially if they have like a scene where they're dying in the background or something.
yeah, like you'll set
overact.
it up. You'll tell the background act, like sometimes they'll be moving too fast, or sometimes they'll be moving not fast enough. Like you'll try to get them to block. That's just a whole nother level or another layer of difficulties you have to try to work with, because now you're directing your actors and then you're trying to direct the background actors, but you're not trying to spend too much time on them because they are background. But I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah. And that's why whenever you're blocking and you have a difficult scene like that, it's always good to spend a little extra time trying to plan it out. Because that was another thing actually in one of these things, they were saying that the more difficult your scene, the more, especially if it's like a fight scene or something that, what they said a fight scene or a action scene, those scenes tend to take a lot more effort to like block out and figure out how it's going to be shot. So you always want to spend extra time doing that. Kind of like what Brian was talking about whenever he was talking about he's going to go in a few hours early
Yeah, it
to
makes
get
sense.
everybody more used to everything so that
I
they
mean,
can kind of
usually,
figure it out on the fly. So they're not just arriving there at 12 when they get the location and then figuring it out while the location time is being used.
true. Oftentimes there's like rehearsals and things as well for,
Yeah.
you know, what fight scenes and stunt scenes. Bigger it is, the more rehearsal time.
Yep.
Generally.
Okay, so the next thing, it said like shot lists and storyboards really help blocking. Some people prefer only using shot lists, some people prefer using only storyboards, and some people prefer to use both. So it just depends on individuals' preference, but those can really help to get an idea for how you want it to be before you arrive on set, and then you can kind of adjust it as necessary based on your location and what you have available. And maybe this shot you wanted, it's not going to work because, like Jorge said, there might be a reflective surface or something that's showing the camera or the boom or the light, so you can't do it the way you thought, so you have to adjust it on set. But it's always good to have that kind of baseline for how you want the movie to go about being. So it's always good to have something just to help you visualize everything before you get on set. say read all the stage directions in the scene when you're making a storyboard or a shot list. Make sure to go through the script, reading any stage directions that are actually given in the action of the script. Make sure to jot those down. Looks for any character interactions or action that might further reveal some staging. Like if it seems like they're walking away further from them or backing away, you need to keep those things in mind. It's because any move the characters make, you want to keep in mind when you're using blocking, storyboard, shot list, and all that, because it's going to change the dynamic between the characters within the scene. And then you want to just decide like any items that might be called out in the script. You want to just kind of decide how you're going to block that out. Are you going to show a close-up of it? Are you going to zoom in on it? You're going to pan down to it. There's a bunch of different things you can do. So you want to keep in mind all the different things that are going to call attention to that are going to make your attention, your audience's attention, focus on certain items that you want them to focus on and how you're going to go about doing that. So this is kind of like the first way you start getting that visualization and that planning down, is using a storyboard or a shot list.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so anybody have any questions about blocking?
Nope, not at the moment. I think, yeah, blocking seems to be not super straightforward, but like the concept of it it's blocking is setting up the it's not too much to really say on that particular off the top of my
One
head.
of the things that you have, I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off, Sarah. Are you done?
Oh, all good. Oh yeah, no, go right ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that you'll see that with blocking is a very good thing when you have like some sort of idea to be economical with your camera movements and to be economical with the camera placement. Every time you're gonna do a scene, you have and you want to have coverage from a lower angle, and then you want to Dutch it, and then you want to give me a 2-shot, then you want the over the shoulder, and then you have a tracking shot that comes from the door until the next room. So you have to be economical with that, and I think that's the best value of actually blocking, is to be economical with the camera movements and the types of shots that you're gonna get. So you can write what you're putting on the screen, where you can plan out the movements of the camera, and then you have the actors, and then you work everything out in order to once you have the whole thing blocked, then you work the camera angles and the camera takes that you have.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess like another note on like acting with actors is, I guess, as you're doing the setup for blocking, it's always great to like check in with the actors on movement too, or be specific. I mean, I guess it's really up to the shoot, the vision, and like the team and directors and things that you're working with. But
yeah, because I've seen scenes where it's like very specific how they need the actors to be. They like have us. One of the videos was showing a scene where there's a kid playing outside of the window, and his parents are inside the house talking about him. So they start showing him in the window, and then they they dolly back, revealing the parents, and then the parents move further away from the child, but the whole time the child is in the scene, is in the frame, in the middle, and then they are walking away from the window, going into another room, and being on opposite sides, still in frame, while the kid is in the background, still in frame as well. So it's like a certain way, certain times they really like want to have an actor like go a certain direction and stop at a certain mark, just to get that kind of whole setup shot.
No, and that makes complete sense. And then I was going to say, directors and actors working with them, it's kind of like, no, this one is very specific. And then other ones, I guess if you're working with the same actor for a while on a whole like shoot or series, this one of the leads, then like being like, oh, you've got a little room on this scene, but no room here. And yeah, that works well.
Yeah, because I was like gonna add that, but then other scenes they kind of just let the actors go, and I've seen where they just have like somebody have a Steadicam maybe, and they kind of just follow the actor around however they want. depending on, it just depends on the set and the scene and what it calls for, really, I guess.
I think so, yeah.
Why is that?
All right, so that's blocking. What's that?
Huh?
What?
I was like, what is that? I'm gonna move on to storyboarding now.
All right, sounds great.
So storyboarding, I actually have an idea for us all to do kind of like a storyboard assignment. Using the angle, shot types, the camera movement, and the blocking that we were just learning about. You kind of use all that stuff when you're thinking about a shot list. So I was thinking I could find, or I could write like a little 1 or 2 page scene, and then we could all just kind of block it and give you guys a few weeks to block it your own way. There's a few different things you can use to block. You can use just a regular piece of paper, create some blocking. I mean, not create some blocking, create like a shot list. I mean, sorry, man, storyboard. You can just create the panels and kind of just make a little square, or 6 of them or 2 of them, however big you want to make them. And then you can just do it on a regular piece of paper. You can do it on, there's websites that have it for free, or there's websites that you can print out a pre-made version of it for free too. So I'll share all that when I actually make the scene or find a scene somewhere, and then we can all work on our own to create the storyboards, and then come together and show how we made ours, just to see.
Yeah, no, that sounds fun. I like
It
that
makes a
idea.
really good idea for everybody to kind of think about the story, what's happening in it, and how the camera should be for the emotion of the scene and for the story to play out. So I think that'd be a really cool idea. But so storyboards, does anybody want to explain storyboard?
Like comic books, pictures, illustrations.
Yeah,
Explaining explaining
that
the
idea.
camera, how the camera goes, explaining how the camera, how the actors are going to be. What is this? What storyboard is this?
Honestly, I'm not. Icarus Duck.
No, that's cute.
I thought it was the Hitler Donald Duck.
That's
For a
well
second.
done.
I've never seen that, but no. It's basically just like
Moving on.
basically like a comic book. What'd you say?
It's awesome.
I said moving on.
This is like an online. I think they have like a basic version that's free. You can do 2 a week or something. It's called Storyboard That. They just have the digital characters, and like some, locations. If you don't want to hand draw, if you feel like you can't. then you
Oh, Raphael. Yeah, I know. I have a video that I was gonna send to Arden from the syllabus. I was like, oh, this would be really interesting for Arden. I'm curious to talk to her about it tonight.
Oh, for
I'll mention it
storyboarding, because
tomorrow.
it went into detail about animation specifically, so it was actually really cool.
Oh, I've used that before.
I'll mention it tomorrow in the
Is it good?
book study.
Yeah, it helps. It's like for storyboarding. Yeah, that's like I had to use it for a class I did a few years back. It's
Oh,
pretty
cool.
easy.
But yeah, so it's just like they have this kind of thing for anybody who doesn't feel like they can draw it out. I feel like it gives you a little less control, but it gives you some just pre-made things, so you can just make the character larger or something and cut off the bottom half of their body, so you can show how close to the frame they are, how far away, and just kind of give a visual distance of everything. So if you guys want to use something like that, basically all a storyboard is just to show the framing, the blocking, where the actors are going to be, and where if they're going to come into frame, are they going to exit the frame? Are they going to move within the frame, and where are they going to move? And then just like how close to the frame or how far away are they going to be? Are they going to be in the foreground, the midground, or the background? Like in this top left, they're standing side by side. You could make someone larger and bring them closer to the foreground. So then you have like a background, foreground conversation instead of them standing side by side. You can do a lot of different things. So it's just to figure out the overall scene, how it's going to play out, where everyone's going to be. So you can kind of get that shot in your head for when you're actually on set. You It's kind of like seeing your movie before you actually go shoot it.
I think it's good to have an idea of like seeing a movie before you shoot it, but then not getting stuck on that. So being able to see like the general idea, and then still have some specific things, but then also leave enough room for it to land sometimes even better than you had imagined.
Yeah, definitely. They always say to be open to any kind of idea or any kind of changes and be able to adapt. Because like Sarah was saying, like you don't always have that same location and it's not going to look exactly the same most likely. So you're going to have to adjust it anyway. So just don't get stuck on storyboard. And if the actor feels like maybe they should go to the left instead of walking to the right, in rehearsal, they're trying to talk to you about like they don't feel like that movement is feeling natural, then just do whatever makes the scene seem the most natural and still works for the story. Don't get too stuck on what you've already made, even if you spend a lot of work making it.
Honey,
This
did
just
you
kind
know
of shows like you don't
Sam?
really need the best drawing
She-
skills to do it. You kind of just you can do little circles. You can even do stickmen. I think I have one that has the stickman. There it is, the stickman. And it's just kind of to get a sense of how far away they are from the camera. Or are they in the center of the frame? Are they to the side? Which side are they at? Everything like that. So you don't have to be the best artist. It just has to come across so that if you're the one that's going to use it, then you need to know what all this information means. If you're not the one that's going to use it, you need to make sure that whoever you're giving it to is going to be able to understand everything.
Did you show the two different examples? The one with the images and the one with more writing?
No, that was in a video. The video had, I might be able to find it. Not the
I
video.
wanted to take a picture of it. You
just
told
the
me not
example.
to.
Oh, that's what you want to take a picture of. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I
Let
was
me
like,
see.
oh, this is really good. You want me to look for it and see if I can find it? I'll look for it.
I had to
Give me a
like
few
look it
minutes.
up, but
Give me a few minutes. I'll find
basically-
it.
all right. Basically, what she was meaning is some storyboards are more visual, where maybe it would just be like two big panels, which would be these squares right here, where you draw in the scene. If you're drawing like what it is and what it could be, or they have smaller ones, kind of like this, that's already on the screen, that has lines for you to kind of describe what is going on. Some leave more. Oh, here we go, like this. So that would have, a bigger picture, so you can kind of show what's happening in the whole thing. And then over here you have what's happening.
You have the chat on the middle of the page,
Oh yeah, but that's just on over these pictures. I'm saying over here and to the right. So you just make the picture in there, and then you have.
Found it.
Oh, you found it?
Mm-hmm. I'm sending it to you now.
Where are you sending it?
Facebook?
All right.
Is that the easiest for you? Or do you want another?
Yeah, that's good.
Do you still have
Okay.
those links that I sent you to those books, Lakota?
Yeah, I
The
do.
storybook? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna share those when I send out the assignment thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I
I
own
sent
both
it.
of them.
You got it?
Yep. So this is like how he was showing it. This guy was in the video. He was showing how on the left you have a storyboard that's more about the visual. It's kind of explaining everything as it goes. He's writing the details in the actual panel. He's saying like, this is the counter, this is the boy, the girl. The light is very low key here. There's a lot of shadow. Saying the raptors are coming in. He's doing a scene from Jurassic
Park.
Yeah. And so they're coming into the kitchen. The kids are hiding behind the counter. And he's showing like if you see in the top left over here, there's these little tiny panels that he put around it. That's showing how the camera's moving within the frame. And that's giving like a visual representation of it. And then it just has some brief description below of what's happening in that scene. And then he showed, if you're not really that great at drawing, so this would be more like something I would do, is draw these little ugly things that look like they could be whatever. And then you explain what they are on the right, having more room for description. So you're describing everything that's happening. because you can't do this thing that's on the left. And then you're kind of showing like instead of showing within the frame that the camera's moving, you can just do 2 different frames for it and show like and explain to the right. Camera's gonna pan from the dinosaurs to the kids.
Those look like big birds. They don't look like raptors.
Yeah, but that's the point. But as long as the information
Yeah.
comes across, you know. But yeah, so they were showing like you don't have to be the best artist as long as you know what you want, or whoever you're giving it to is going to be able to understand what this means. Then that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably wouldn't really have them in the same area of the scene either. You'd probably have the kids to one side or the other. I mean, you might match them exactly to where the dinosaurs were, but there's a lot of things you can do. But that's the example. Yeah. Thanks, honey. You can get more advanced with the storyboards. You can do some coloring if you want. If you're good
Dang,
at that.
that's good.
Sarah, control your cat.
Star Wars, George Lucas had somebody work with him to figure out exactly what he wanted everything to look like. So he made like very detailed storyboards. They're usually not this detailed, but they can be. It just depends on, you know.
Brand is asking, so it's just a guide?
Yes, it is a guide. You don't have to stick by it, because what's going to happen is if you try to go by now, Star Wars is a little bit different because a lot of it is CGI, a lot of it is green screen, a lot of it is on set. So like a lot of these details are kind of important, but for the most part, like if you're shooting like at a park, you know, you might get to a park, the park might be different, the bench you might want might not be available. So you're gonna have to try to make up for that. And the thing is, you're going to try so hard to make your shot look like what's in that picture. Don't do that. Just make it work. It's a guide. It's kind of like a shot list. It's telling you, hey, like maybe we go for a close. And there's a whole bunch of other things you can do with these shot lists. Like each and every one of these blocks, you can do things like put maybe a preferred lens or some kind of detail for the cinematographer. Hey, maybe you might want to put whatever lens. That they normally don't. They can and they don't, but you can if you want to. Like, you know, hey, I have an idea, maybe put this lens for this specific shot. But for movies like Star Wars, where you don't really know, it's kind of like in your head and everything is in your imagination. Yeah, storyboards are very helpful. But for me, I don't even I stopped doing storyboards a long time ago. Because we have DSLRs now, and for those that don't know, they're just cameras that take pictures, photography cameras that have the ability to take videos. So you have
there are some directors that do that. They take pictures of the locations, of the spaces, of the.
Well, not even just that. I'll just get like a couple fill-ins and say, hey, sit over here, and I'll take some pictures of, here we're gonna do an over the shoulder here, an over the shoulder, a wide, and then it also gives me an idea of like what lenses I want to use too, and then all you got to do is just go in the playback and flip through each shot and to see if it works. It helps you to tell. Like I've been on so many sets and people try to figure out, am I crossing the line? Well, I'm like, yo, just pull your camera out and take a picture real quick, and then you go back and look at it, and then you can see if you're crossing the line or not, and doing things like that. So for me, I just I've gotten to the habit of doing a quick storyboard in my camera right now. I always bring a DSLR with me, and I always take some quick photos right there on the set just to make sure it's going to work properly or not.
That's smart. So instead of drawing it out, you kind of just take the photos into the DSLR and then build a little quick storyboard there, and then you run off that.
Yep.
That's smart.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all the different takes on it. Like some people do exactly what Brian's talking about. Some people said that they, instead of storyboarding, they will use they'll make a digital animatic out of it. And then some people say that they actually go to the location if they have a location before shooting. They'll go to the location and they'll have either stand-ins or the actual actors, and they'll just kind of to shoot it to see what, kind of taking the pictures, but they actually make a video out of it. So I thought all these things were really interesting. It really depends on how detailed and how just your production process really.
And that's what good PAs are good for too. Another job on set.
Yep.
Stand-ins, yep. But
I've
this just
done
kind of
both.
shows like how it would look if you're playing them back to back. And you guys can see like in some of these pictures, they have the arrows. So the arrows would be in this sense, when they're pointing out, that means it's either a zoom out or a pan, or a dolly back. And when the arrows are pointing in from the corners, that would be either a zooming in or dollying in. And then you could just kind of mark it.
So Raphael is asking if the
Right
same
way.
thing would work with, let's say, a smartphone camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just all about framing, really. So like, it doesn't really matter the camera. I feel like it matters like what you're going to use in frame when you actually get to set.
It doesn't have to be a beautiful shot. It just has to show everything.
I feel like if you're taking a picture, you kind of want to set it up how you would kind of imagine it, right?
No, I mean a beautiful shot in the sense that like it doesn't have to have too much detail, like super duper crispy shot in a way. Like the
Oh
most
yeah,
modern
like it doesn't have to be the
camera
best
phone.
of the best. If you just, especially time, like time's a big thing. If you don't have your location, there's a few different reasons why you might just do different.
Yeah,
versions of these kinds of things.
I think it's good to know how to do one. To do the exercise, I think is a great idea. I don't think realistically we'd probably be doing it all the time on shorts or anything.
Mhm.
Because for time and just on short videos. But I still think that it's great because on certain productions, it's gonna be there. So I don't know. That's
Yeah, I
what
think the main reason I want to do it is just to get everybody thinking about framing, blocking, camera movement, and just the storyboard itself, and see if maybe something you want.
Because it does help you also understand how you want the camera to move with your characters in the scene. It helps you see that scene in your mind a little better. Yeah, so
It
it's
also
more of an
helps like to figure out, to really like look at a script and figure out how you want, like how that story is going to play out on in the scene, like how it's actually going to play out. Is it going to look good? Is it going to feel the right way? Is the movement you're doing going to portray that part of the script correctly?
And a lot of the videos showed that
So
it's more to give that emotion, to give that for example, if you guys didn't see the one with Studio Binder that we're talking about, they talked about different shapes that an image can have, like it can be square, triangle, lines, and how each of those shots, each of those blocking movements, they will give out a different emotion, a tone. They will frame those characters better. So it's more of an instrument and an exercise than anything.
Yeah, is it an emotional scene? Do you want to show the character's face? Well, do you want it to be really close? Do you want them to kind of be blurry? Or are they waking up from the hospital? Do you want the nurse to look blurry? Do you want them to look, and like how do you want to do your scene? How do you want it to look? How does it connect with the story? Is it telling the story that is on the script, or the story that you want to tell? Yeah, so there's all these different things that go into it. So that's why I want to really do this exercise. Not necessarily so everybody's perfect at doing a storyboard, just so everybody kind of gets used to all of the different things we're learning about this semester.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It's an information transfer, right? So I guess it's less about like perfect photos and more about being able to draw it in a way that shows the shots. Just good practice.
And there's some like versions of storyboard to the actual shot.
Very
cool. They're kind of like matching it, but as you can see in the bottom one, they have a different background. They have like some kind of window. And obviously that's not in the actual final product. And so that kind of shows that they didn't have the exact location, but they had the idea. So they're writing out, oh, there's just a building behind her and it's to the right or to the left. And she's in front of that building and those crows are over there. And so they're just kind of showing how it would look. And that's the idea in the storyboard. And then that's the final product on the right. V's asking,
Yeah,
what about when drawing in props or extras? Does this help determine if things should be trimmed down or adding in? Basically, how descriptive does the picture need to be, or should the written notes be more descriptive?
I'm going to say the written notes should be descriptive. As far as like drawing it, you're just kind of giving an idea. So like if you've ever read a comic book, like a comic book is literally like a movie on paper. So like you'll see like one drawing in one box and it's like a guy on his phone, but then you'll have like other dialogue popping into his box, giving their spiel, kind of giving you an idea of how like it would be pieced together or edited if it were a movie in a way. Like if you've ever seen a comic and like some of the drawings like overlap into another box, or if some of the dialogue would overlap, like it kind of gives you a sense of like editing in a way, like how it would look in an actual movie. So just think of it like a comic book. But the thing is, comic book artists have this thing because they got to tell like this whole story, but they only have so many pages. So to go about that, they just fill each block with as much dialogue as they possibly can. Like so many dialogue bubbles in one box. And then they'll cut to the next shot.
I feel like it also depends on the person. I feel like some people are more visual, and sometimes I feel like it should be a mixture of, in my opinion, for me, if it were me, I feel like I would be comfortable with a mixture of both, because images are easily misinterpreted. So it's always good to have that explanation, have that little text, just so you're sure that's what it is. And then the image is just so you can have an idea of how it's going to look. But people don't need that. Like, some people don't need that. Like Brian said, sometimes you just do it so much that you kind of understand, and you're more comfortable with the text. Some people work better just with the shot list, like Jorge was talking about. I feel like it varies very much on the person, on how they understand things, and just their preference, really.
Yeah, just like how they work and how they get the shot, or just how they get the final product. It doesn't really matter how you come to it. Some people go into a set without a script. Like, as long as they get the final product.
That terrifies me.
I wouldn't
Please
recommend
never
it.
do
I would
that.
always go with the script, but there's certain people that just go, now let's
The
just
big
do some improv.
professionals with the big actors, there are like a handful of directors that are like, oh, they don't come in with a script. They just have the actors in and they play out a scenes. They probably have is like an outline of the story. And they're like, oh, explain the scene to them and then just let them improvise that scene is probably how it works, which to me is terrifying. But if you get to that level where you're confident in your actors and you're confident in your story, good for you. But
yeah, so just like anything else, it just depends on the individual and how they want to do their production process. Like in this one, you can see they didn't really do too much background. The second shot is just saying it's a close-up of her speaking to the camera. We don't even know what's behind her. We just know that the information that they want to make sure they capture is that she is looking at the camera and talking directly to it. And that's all they have. And so it just really depends on what you want, what you feel is necessary, and what you feel is just, I don't know, like you can always make it look better and you can always add in more, but you never know if it's going to turn out exactly as you pictured. So sometimes it's better maybe to just do a little more basic like this. But yeah, it's just all preference.
I think one of the good things about having a storyboard, which I don't use, let me tell you, I don't use storyboards. I do shot lists. But when you're first starting out, or if you like that storyboards, that is totally up on personal preference. But if one of the good things about having a storyboard is that it teaches you again to be economical with what you're doing, because if you're drawing a storyboard that is 20 pages long for 1 page of your script, then you're doing something wrong, unless of course it has to be it's page 1, World War II starts. Of course it's going to take a lot of explanation, a lot of shots. But if you're just telling a story about somebody that's going to the bathroom, and then you have a shot of the handle and an insert of the hand touching the handle, and then you go and the door opening from the inside, and then you go on a shot from the back of the actor going into the bathroom, and then you go on a shot of the actor looking at himself in the mirror, and then he goes to the bathroom, and that's all that happens in the scene. Then it's going to teach you that you're going to work a lot more for no return on your investment of the time. So I think that could help a lot of people to understand what is important. Because if the only reason why you're following an actor to the bathroom is just because you want to show the bathroom, then there's a problem.
Yeah, I like that take. Yeah, because the other thing about it is they were saying a storyboard really allows you to see how long the film's going to be, because you can see how many shots there are, and if you put that to maybe say like this many seconds, that many seconds, and you kind of get a guess of how long everything's going to be, you kind of get a sense of the length of the movie, and you see like, oh, this, like Jorge just explained, like if you have a series of shots that are one thing, then, and it's just something mundane like going to the bathroom, then you probably don't want to have that in your script, because it's going to just take up extra space. It's going to be a little boring. It's not necessary to the story. It doesn't seem like it anyway. So if it's not necessary, then just cut it out, because you don't want to bore your audience, and you don't want to have, and then you're giving yourself more work too by just doing too many different, writing out all those different shot lists. I mean, not shot lists, writing out all those different storyboard ideas, when you could just do one or two storyboard shots, because you'll still get those shots in the end. So it doesn't really, you don't have to do every single take. It's just about showing like the general idea of what's happening or what's going to happen within that.
And it also helps with funding. I'm sorry, Lakota, for cutting you off, but
oh no, go ahead.
But it also helps with funding. That's one of the main reasons why you make storyboards, to get investors, that to show them some sort of in some sort of way how the movie is going to look like, so they can see something. That's before the right now what you have that are previs, and then you have like 3D scenes that you can show studio executives and all those people. But storyboards was the first step, and it's still being done to show people, investors, and people you're going to get the financing from.
Makes sense.
So yeah, previs, like what he was just saying, I just pulled it up for you guys. It's kind of just like if it's a CGI, especially they use this a lot, it's kind of just like an animation of what it's going to look like without having all the final skins and everything in. It's just kind of the movement of the characters and like the basic general idea. And they usually make something like this before they get like the big funding, just so they can show like how it's going to actually play out. So yeah, that's cool. But yeah, does anybody have any comments or questions about anything?
No, I think it's all like informative and like what's it called, bulletined, as in like you're going over all of the steps, reasons why you're covering it all, so it's good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to see if I can find like something that'll explain these, because the arrows is one thing I was thinking we need to go over, since something like this, like if you do want to do the illustration on the panel, this is showing that the camera is moving out from that shot to the whole shot. So it's starting on a close-up of that person in the middle, and then it's moving out towards the rest, because the arrows are pointing away from it.
Mm-hmm.
If the arrows were pointing towards it, it would be saying that the shot starts with all the characters and zooms in on the person. You got other arrows that show like if it's going into the camera, I mean into the panel, it would be either zooming in or dollying in, and then you can just write a description below like what it's supposed to be. Then you have like tilt, pan, you could do an arc shot. It would be like going around the whole panel, or like a 360 shot, something like that. But there's a bunch of different ways to convey. They say arrows on the outside of the panel show camera movement. Arrows on the inside should be for like the characters, where the characters are moving. They should be smaller, and they should show where the characters are moving. Maybe the character's turning his head, so you'll have like a little curved arrow to show that he's turning his head backwards if he's in maybe a car and talking to someone in the back seat. So whenever we start doing this, just be aware of like how you can convey camera movement. just by doing like a simple arrow to the left, showing that it's a pan to the left, or maybe the character's walking to the left. Like right here, you see that.
When it's written, I like that, how they have it, like pan left. It's very specific. Really gives you a good idea. I like that. Then you know it's not the character getting up and moving to the left.
Yeah, and then it's just like, just in case the arrow's not coming off, you know, they're not really seeing what you're meaning by this arrow down at the bottom left, for instance. Like, does that mean it's coming up towards the camera? Well, they should say it on the bottom, and they should, you know, describe what that arrow means, basically. So that's it. That's it with the storyboard stuff, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, just to kind of go on off of what Jorge was talking about. Sometimes you can see, like, if you watch behind the scenes ever in like movies, sometimes they'll have either a storyboard or a pre-visualization thing, like that shows how they, like, from scene to scene or from shot to shot, what it would look like. And they kind of play it back, the whole storyboard played back in a row, so that it's kind of like a moving image. It's almost a movie in itself. And sometimes even the bigger productions or somebody who's trying to get funding, they might make something where it's showing the story play out, and they actually hire like voice actors to voice over the entire scene to show like how it would be. Maybe they add sound effects, maybe they even add some like music. So it really depends on a lot of different factors, but it's a good way to secure funding or try to secure funding by showing what the final product could be. And that's why a lot of productions do it, especially if they're trying to like get some really big funding. They'll make things like this to really get people excited and understand what this story is. So it's not just on script, it's not just on page. You can actually have a visualization of it too.
Smart. Yeah, I like that.
All right.
Different, like, imaginative ways to really draw attention. It's kind of smart. And then I guess the more you do it, the more ideas will start to pop up.
Yeah, and then you just be creative before you even actually get started, and just kind of show like what you're planning.
Yeah. Again, my biggest trick is like the first time you ever do anything creative like that is don't judge yourself too harshly on the first couple. Then as you do a couple, then start landing down the criticism to increase your skill level. That's
Yeah.
my thought on that.
Okay, and then the other thing I was going to talk about, just like some of the advanced camera movements.
Cool.
And this was just some of the stuff that we already kind of went over, but we didn't really discuss what each piece of equipment is. So I just thought we could go through these and kind of show what they are, what they're used for, and what the differences are. And we also wanted to ask like what everyone that's worked on productions, what they've used and what their favorite thing is. I'm going to start with this.
But a good example of the talking storyboard would be Rick and Morty. They do that a lot.
They do a
Oh, yeah.
storyboard.
They do like when they're teasing the future episodes of the future seasons. They sometimes do that. They'll do a talking storyboard.
Oh,
You want
cool.
me to try to find an example?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, they
Alright.
call that an animatic.
Yeah, that's the word.
That's what it's called.
Thank you. Brain's not working.
All right. So you have your basic one that sticks to the tripod. That's just when the camera, it can be static or you can do panning or tilting. And that's you can do like a whip pan, like that's pretty much all those are used for. It's just to kind of set up the camera, have it stable, have it set in one place. So it's very good for not having like movement or unwanted movement within your camera with all the shake that comes from handheld, unless you want that kind of look. But it's also very limiting in that you can't really It's not good for like getting up and moving it around and capturing moving shots as much as other pieces of equipment. And you have a gimbal, which is kind of like it's a motorized, some can be motorized, some can be manual, and it helps stabilize the camera so that any shaking you're doing from your hands or your feet, the way the thing's set up, it kind of absorbs the shock of all that, and so that it kind of counterbalances what you're doing so that the camera doesn't move along with your movements, and that way it stays a lot more stable, a lot more fluid looking. And you have handheld, which is just holding the camera, and that can look good for what you're trying to do. If you want it to look like somebody's really worried or somebody's having a panic attack, having handheld might be good to have that camera shake to kind of give that feeling of unease. But it's not the best for getting those smooth movements and like, or anything you need to get from a height, because somebody's actually holding it physically, so it's not as good for that kind of thing. Then you got the jib.
I sent you
like it's like a tiny crane, and what it does is it keeps the camera stable going from a bottom to top position or a top to bottom, so that you're having a nice vertical smooth movement. Slider is kind of like a jib, but it's the final image is like the jib, but it's for horizontal. So it goes from left to right or right to left, and it gives you those really fluid movements, smooth movements. And then you can also kind of set it to the side to get it kind of at like a Dutch angle maybe, but most commonly it's just used for like a left to right or right to left movement. I'll kind of show some examples I have within the Reddit in a second.
I sent you the examples on Facebook, Lakota.
Okay.
Speak of the devil.
Life is trying to put our generation
This is like the
on
animatic you were talking
sidelines,
about.
but we refuse to let it pass us by. Watch us fly ahead. Watch us rise.
I love commercials.
Watch us change our world.
Do
We
you
will
really?
be the next greatest generation.
Come on, Rick.
Over there, but that's basically what it is. It's just kind of, it's like a moving storyboard in a way. And it's kind of showing what it's going to look like in the final. It's just like a pre-visualization and animatic of what the final product could be. Sometimes it's not exactly the same as the final product. It depends, of course, on if they make any changes or if they feel like it's not working the way it is right now. But it's just to get kind of a sense of how the whole scene will play out and how long it's going to be. So how long you stay on each shot and stuff like that. So that's what the animatic is. Thanks, Daniel.
No problem.
Okay, so for the pieces of equipment, next we have the Steadicam. Steadicam is a very large, expensive piece of equipment that stabilizes the camera. It attaches to a vest on a person. So a Steadicam operator will actually hold this, attach it to their vest, and then it has like an arm that sticks out from the vest that attaches to this pole that the gimbal that he's holding. And that will, it creates smoother movement. Most of the time it creates smoother movement than the gimbal itself. They are more difficult to control than a gimbal. And they're more expensive and they're pretty bulky and heavy. So we were watching some videos of people talking about it, and they were saying like how it really starts to weigh on you throughout the day. So you have to be sure to like take it off and set it to the side as much as you can, because if you're just wearing it the whole day, you're gonna get really tired. It's really heavy and it takes its toll after a while.
And don't wear one if you have scoliosis.
What was that?
Don't wear one if you have scoliosis.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were saying also like if you are trying to wear one, you need to make sure your posture is correct and everything, because you can really, damage your back or damage your legs.
Yeah, I did
And don't
that.
just use anyone's vest either. You have to, vest is a very personal thing. Make sure that it's one that's comfortable for you.
But there's a few of them that you can actually adjust to you. Like it has adjustments on it.
Yeah, they're
Like
just saying
like how tight it is.
Yeah, how tight it is, and if
Yeah.
basically it'll fit multiple people.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the guy was just saying, like, as a precaution, like, it's a very personal thing. Don't just get one off of online or lend someone's with borrow someone's without making sure that it fits you, that it's good for you, that kind of thing. Even if it is adjustable, like, you can't really know that until you put it on and see if it actually fits you or not.
Mm-hmm. Moving on from the Steadicam, you got the crane. The crane's like a jib, but like a much larger one. It can do a lot more movement. It has a lot more freedom, but it's also harder to control. So it takes some practice. But it has more extension to it, so you can really get those like top-down shots or those really nice sweeping movements, and you can create some really cool things. I'll show like some more examples. Wire rig. What's a wire rig, guys? I didn't see anything else on that besides on this picture.
I've never heard of that.
A wire rig is something they use for like stadium events. So like in the NFL when they get those aerial shots. This is a camera. It's a camera literally rigged on a wire, and they'll send it from one end to the other. So that's how they get those crazy views. If you guys watch NFL or not, but
okay, cool.
They're not used too much in movies. I guess, yeah, they use them in Hollywood. They use them in Hollywood, but it's for like big aerial stunts and whatnot.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a slider in the sky.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool. Thanks. And then the last piece of equipment is the drone. Drone, if you're not aware, it's just kind of like a little mini helicopter in a way that flies around. You control it with a remote, and it has a little attached camera to it that picks up shots from the sky, so you can kind of.
If you guys didn't check out the videos, there's actually quite a few videos on the syllabus and the YouTube channel about how to make both your drone and your GoPro videos look more cinematic and cool, and how to edit them, specifically how to edit them, which I thought was really cool.
So as you can see here, this is the Steadicam. The GIF I found, he's showing like the arm, he's showing how it's not really doing it. He's messing up because he's doing too much and he ends up making it drop right there. But what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to take all that movement, and you see he's moving around, he's moving it up and down, and the camera's staying stable. The camera's not jolting back and forth. The camera's staying where it should be, and it's kind of like you can control it and how it pans. You can control it in other ways too. And all that movement he's doing, the camera's not really moving until he drops it. So it's really cool to see. Here's some examples of like a Steadicam shots. Yeah, you don't want to like mess around too much if you're trying to use heavy equipment. Like, yeah, you can. Like it does absorb a lot of the shock, but I would be too afraid to do what that guy was doing for that exact reason. This is a more proper way to use it. It's just kind of holding it. I don't even know, is this guy using a vest? Oh, he is.
And having someone behind you is always awesome too. Like always, like something you should have.
Yeah, if you're doing a shot like this with it, they always say it's better to have somebody behind you being the spotter. You see how he's kind of checking behind to make sure they're not going to run into anything. And so that's always good because you don't want the person holding the camera to trip, safety reasons and, you know, the equipment reasons too. And then you can kind of see just like how a Steadicam shot would be. It's really smooth, not too much movement. And, you know, the most famous one, well, not the most, but one of the most famous ones is the whole scene where you're following the kid on the bike.
That scene's iconic.
Yeah, I think it's like, that's why I said it's not I don't know if it's the most, but it's one of the most famous scenes of a Steadicam.
It's been mimicked by other filmmakers. That scene's been like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think Steadicam has been, I'm not necessarily sure. I don't think this is the first Steadicam shot. I think it's been around a little bit longer than that, but Steadicam has been around for a while though.
From what I googled last time, it seems like this was actually the first time it was used in the guy who created the Steadicam was brought in to use it or something like that. I think James said it, and then I googled it to make sure that it was accurate. And yeah, it was like
it was Kubrick's because he was always into like new techniques and new gear.
Mm-hmm.
He has lenses that were made for NASA, so imagine that guy. Well, he had, because he has passed, but
Yeah.
he had lenses that
Um,
were used to like look into space. So yeah, he was one of the first that he used
Yeah.
a lot of those. But I think this was one of the first
I
scenes.
believe it was the first, according to the article I read.
Yeah.
But yeah, all I know is that he brought the original creator of it on to
Right.
teach him how to use it and everything. It was
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
then he does it again later in the same film with the labyrinth that's outside
Yeah.
the Garden Labyrinth and all that stuff. That's why
Also,
my feature film was made in one shot. And I had a guy that had the Steadicam, and he carried that shit. I don't know how that guy didn't get his back broken because he carried that thing for an entire hour. So
Oh, wow.
it's insane.
oh, yeah, like watching them, I was so terrified the entire time watching the guy use it, and every time he would bend over, I'd be like, ah. I think there's
Like
actually a
showing how
video.
it doesn't fall. Yeah.
I think there's actually a video on the Reddit of the guy like playing around with it. I don't know if it was a Steadicam or not. He was playing around with something, and he dropped it, and my heart just like, oh my god! We didn't even see it on the ground, and I already freaked out. As far as like there are certain places that you need a license for a drone, or that even don't allow drones, but there's also a video that we linked as well on how to get drone looking shots. Honey,
We're talking
was it
about
with this?
Steadicam, not drones.
No, I know, but I saw in the comments, honey,
Oh,
like in the
okay.
chat. Yeah, so I was just responding to it in the chat.
Gotcha.
That there is actually a video that also shows you how to get drone looking shots, or even crane looking shots. Well, not necessarily drone, but like crane looking shots from, was it a Steadicam or was it a
No, it's from a drone. Like they were showing
Prob-
different shots you
It's
can try to
probably a
mimic.
drone. I don't think you can get a crane shot from a Steadicam. It would definitely be a drone.
Yeah, it'd have
Some
to
of
be-
these drones
it'd
are
be a
pretty
drone.
cool now.
Mhm.
oh yeah, I must have mixed it up.
So they were
something else
showing
then.
like different ways you can kind of like try to mimic these different
Mimic
shots when you
yeah.
don't have this equipment, when you don't have the budget for it, and things like that. And then there was other videos that showed like why there's still each piece of equipment in use, because of course, some you can't exactly mimic it. And
And how some people will swap one for the other exactly, and that's not always smart because they are different for a reason, and you're not necessarily going to get the exact same shot with the different ones.
All right. So before you guys go on, I'd like to add that so the drone and the Steadicam are like their own separate professions. So
Mhm.
like you can actually go and get certified on Steadicam and drone, and people will hire you out just to do, just to use your equipment, or just to
Yeah,
use
we
you
saw.
and your equipment. So like my friend of mine, he's got a steady rig, and he moved out to California, and that's all he does is just he gets hired to do the Steadicam work, and that's it. And then I have another friend who just does nothing but drone work. So like
Yeah, because it's not easy. It
yeah, because
isn't
you
easy.
need you need a license for it, like an air.
you can get
pilot's
certified on
Not to
Steadicam
mention,
and then
drone pieces fall all the time and break all the time.
Well, yeah.
People talk about that all the time. How they're constantly like
Well,
breaking
it's a
pieces, losing
it's a
pieces.
sport thing. Drones are a sport. They race those things now. Like it's a sport. I think Michael Bay
Yeah,
did a
I
film
saw.
with a war film with drones, and it was like going all over the place with it. So like if you get yourself a drone and learn it and maybe get some certifications on it, you can make some money off of just that. Like if you're not even, if you're just looking for something to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a drone myself that I've been practicing.
Yeah, and if you guys are gonna use a drone, you always look into the laws and the rules around your area, because
Yep.
certain
So here in
speed-
DC, not in DC, but yeah.
Yeah.
You're not allowed drones in DC. Because it's so small, and then we have the airports are like so close to each other.
Mhm.
I know if you're like near an airport, it's a no. Like they'll send the Air Force. I'm in the Air Force. I'm telling you right now, they'll come and shoot it down. So you just kind of got to do your research on where the nearest airports is and kind of try to stay away from that. And then,
Yeah, you don't want to lose that investment.
yeah. So
But yeah, thanks for that. So the next piece of equipment, well, actually, does anybody have any questions about any of that? Steadicam or drone? We'll kind of show some of the drone footage in a second.
I'm too lazy to get my laptop for the cricket sounds.
Good.
All right, so the next piece of equipment I was going to talk about is the crane shot. Crane shots are good for big arcing from like, you can do tilt and pan and arc from up to down. You can do pedestal type shots where it's just going straight up and down. Or you can do big sweeping movements where you start out to the left and you sweep it over to the right to see something on the other side. There's a lot of different things you can do with a crane, but they are also, they take some time to get used to and time to learn how to operate, just like all these other pieces of equipment. One of the good things you can do is you have very fluid movement, especially if you have it on a gimbal at the end, and you can get it really close to the ground. You can get it really high up in the air, and you can capture all the different kinds of action you want. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the drone. Some of them have an operator that actually sits, the more expensive, more, I don't know what to call it, but the larger cranes have sometimes a place where the operator actually sits up on top of the crane, controlling it from up on top. And some of them, smaller versions, will have it where the operator is controlling it at the other end of the crane. I don't know if I have well, this one's kind of showing the guy on top of it again. But if he wasn't there, it would just be like the camera would be at the end and the operator would be on the other side of the crane, controlling it by moving it up and down, kind of like a seesaw.
So sketchy. Oh my God. I've seen I've
You
seen
said
some
that's
crazy
sketchy.
stuff. This is not the sketchiest thing I've seen, but it's pretty sketchy. But nowadays, like the technology is gone. Like what they'll do now is they can I'm not saying this is an old picture, but you'll still see some of this. But nowadays they'll put the camera up there and have a wire running down or a wireless signal that runs down so you can see the picture from the bottom, so you don't have to have somebody all the way up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really, like something like this is a little dangerous, but there's some that are actually made for the operator to be up on top of it too.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have like a little side platform for assistant cameras to do the focus. So the more professional and the larger scale you get and the more expensive you get, the more it has professionalized versions for different types of operation. Cranes can also be attached to cars like this one where you get those nice driving scenes. Sometimes they attach it to a car and they record the car behind them. Sometimes they attach it to the same car that they're driving through. But it's just a way to attach it to a car to get any kind of chase scene or just showing off the car itself. And they're mainly used for shots like this, where you're just going up into the sky slowly, doing maybe like a little bit of an arc, or you could do a little bit of a tilt. That's mainly what these types of equipment pieces are for. And usually they'll do a bunch of combinations of things, like they'll do a pan and a tilt and go down at the same time, so that it's a bunch of different movement all at once. It looks very professional.
I think that panned up to a little too much for my opinion.
Yeah, I think you might be right. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about cranes? All right. I think with sound too, as I've looked around to my equipment.
They'll have them on the side of cars too, sometimes.
On the side of the crane?
Yeah, like basically they'll have them like a crane, so it goes onto the side of the car. So it's like a side shot of the car. Like I don't remember what it's exactly called.
I know what you're talking about. Like I saw one, it's like a smaller version, but it kind of like has suction cups and then it attaches around something on the car.
That's a car mount. That's a car mount.
Car mount? Okay.
The actual crane is the lever, the boom system with the camera on the end of it. I don't know why they use Porsches whenever you see that, the huge crane on top of the car. I have no idea. But like every time I see it, it's always like a Porsche. I don't know why.
I'm not sure.
It's because having a crane isn't flexing enough.
Yeah, they have to have the expensive car to go.
Brain stolen in Toronto recently.
Really?
Yeah,
I steal something that big.
I know. I just saw the ad for it. I'm
Well,
like,
it's on a car, so you just steal the car and drive off with it.
But honestly, I got. If someone's stealing something that huge, I gotta give them some talent.
So next is the camera slider. The camera sliders, like I said, you can do forward and back. They usually use a dolly for that, but you can also use a slider if that's all you have. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to have as much distance, but it is able, like he's doing right there, showing you that it can be for front and back movement as well, or it could be for side-to-side movement. It's kind of like having a dolly on a smaller scale.
So this is my favorite piece of equipment. I like to carry this because it's kind of like I'm so used to bringing my dolly with me and loading it into my car, and it takes forever. So like the slider is for me like to have like an alternate option. Like if I'm not sure, maybe I might want to get some type of dolly movement, but I don't want to bring my dolly. I'll just bring my slider with me. So I like the slider, but there's other types of movement you can get with the slider as well. So a couple meetings ago, I had brought up the arcing shot, which is like, and you brought up the Bad Boys clip from Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys 1, and it had like the little arc. So you can do that with a tracked arc that's kind of like a curved, or you can do that with a Steadicam. But what I've learned on another set is that you can kind of recreate that movement or get that illusion with a slider as well. Like if you get you like a medium-sized slider and a really thick, heavy-headed tripod, and then you push the slider one way in one direction while turning the tripod head, you see how like in this shot here, the event, well, this is actually a circular shot, but
yeah, this is on a dolly, I'm pretty sure, but just to give a sense of what you're talking about.
But like to give the illusion like the background is moving and the characters in your focus aren't moving, that's how you would pull that off on a slider. You would have it moving, the slider moving in a forward direction while turning the tripod head to kind of give it like an arc a little bit to make the background move and not the subject.
That's cool.
It kind of gives you that hero shot like in the Bad Boys movie, the very first one. But that one was shot, I'm pretty sure that one was shot on with a Steadicam and not with the slider. But if you're trying to kind of get like a movement like that, a little bit of a movement like that, you could actually pull that off with the slider as well.
Nice. Good to know. Thanks. And yeah, like as you can see, Brian, like as you can see what Brian is talking about, there's always ways that you can try to creatively create these types of shots. So even if you only have a slider, don't think, or even if you only have a dolly or whatever, don't think that that's all you can do. Try to think of creative ways where you can mimic the other shots. Because there were some YouTube videos that were showing like this person was taping, like I wouldn't recommend this, but somebody was taping it to a broom pole to make it look kind of like.
And you can't blame us if it goes wrong too.
Right.
blame you guys for sure.
But just to get that creativity going, they taped it to a broom pole so that they could put it up into the air a little higher, because then they can make it look sort of like a crane or a jib shot, since they didn't have that equipment. So there's always ways you can go about being creative with the equipment you have.
Obviously, he didn't recommend it in front of clients because that's a little amateur hour. But
Yeah.
like to get some cool material or something, no one needs to know. But yeah, he got a really cool looking shot. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, it's in one of the videos. But yeah, so does anybody have any questions about the slider or comments before we move on?
V was talking about, maybe Brian will know how to respond to this. V said, I think with sound too, as I have looked around to buy equipment, there are certain rules which I understand. Rules around sound.
Oh yeah, there's laws against sound equipment in DC as well, because they can use it, like you can get microphones that can pick up a voice from like almost a mile away. So you can use it to spy on people. So And you know, DC is like the nation's capital, so like a lot of top secret information goes through here. So
Right.
they,
Gotcha. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
So
like
there's-
I've been on set and I was doing like literally like I just had my mic on and I can hear a conversation like all the way on the other side. So I took my my earphones off. I couldn't hear them, but I put the earphones back on and the microphone and it was picking them up as if I was standing next to them. So some of these microphones can pick up sound from a great distance. So yeah, I would imagine that there would be some kind of like rule or regulation as to like what you're doing with the sound equipment. But
I knew
I've never been approached or harassed about, you know, because every time like there's always like a camera next to me or something like that. So I guess they kind of get the idea of what's going on. But
Right.
I knew there was some sound equipment that was banned in the States, but I didn't know why till now. That's interesting, actually.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that. Thanks for
And
letting.
it does make sense too.
It does. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, I never thought about it.
And I think I have heard it before because I think it was my dad or something that was like, oh, now equipment is getting so interesting that you can hear other people's conversations with certain mics or certain sound, whatever. I think he did tell me that at one point.
there's that, and then the lavs. The lavaliers have frequencies that they can pick up on. So like that's another thing. So like if you're, you know, near an airport or something like that, you could pick up some radio frequencies that you shouldn't be picking up. So
And that could also interfere with the flight too, right?
yeah.
If there's an emergency or something.
So yeah, like, so I guess it's just really good to always look into the laws around you and see what's allowed, what's not allowed. Because you also, most places require a license unless you want to shoot it guerrilla style. You might want to get a license to shoot in that area.
And I'll say a little incident from my own with this story that you're showing right now.
Mhm.
I've been on one shoot. It was sketchy as heck. I was scared like crap that I was going to hurt the actor.
Mhm.
The director asked two of us to push the dolly as fast as we can and stop it right in front of him.
Ooh, did it work?
It worked, but then I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
I walked away from it like, nope. And then I heard the next day the actor actually got hit by the dolly because the director asked it for again.
Yeah,
I walked off that
That's why
shoot.
you always want to be safe and you know, that's why they always talk about safety and everything, because a lot of these like independent productions, people don't really care as much, and then, you know, people can end up getting hurt. So it's always important to think about safety.
And always think about think about the people around you, because the thing is, that's on you. If you basically do that and it hurts the actor, that's on you. That's basically on you and the director.
And not even just that, it's also the equipment too. Like if you had stopped short too much and too hard, it could have, you know, made the thing flip or made the thing fall over. So it's about safety of people, safety of equipment, and just, you know,
Safety of your wallet.
making everyone feel comfortable too, because obviously that made Daniel feel uncomfortable to do it back.
Yeah, I left the set on that because of that. I'm like, nope, I'm not dealing.
So one good way to get a shot like that is, if you can, there's also, you can start from close and back away, and then they just reverse it in post. But I don't know if that was possible with that with whatever was happening in frame, because the actor has to kind of do backwards things, so it's a little iffy. But if you're doing it fast enough, yeah, that's a way to get that shot more safely.
Yeah, he was walking into the room. That's what was happening.
Oh, okay, so that would have looked a little weird if it was backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But all right, so the next thing is the dolly shots. It's a dolly is basically like, I think of it as like a train track that you put some kind of board or piece of equipment on that sits on that track and goes smoothly across it while you bring the camera forward, backwards, or you can set it up in like a circle to make the arc shots we were showing. It was I think that was probably, it was either a Steadicam or a dolly shot. I'm not sure, but I would assume it was a dolly shot, but I'm not sure. But it's just to get these fluid movements back, forward, left, right, or in like an arcing position or any kind of position you want. Like I've seen some make it kind of like an S shape just to get a different camera movement. It's basically just pulls that it goes across and it'll follow that track kind of like a train. So however you want to set up that movement is how that camera is going to go. And people will use these a lot to close in on an actor, or they'll follow them from the side, like in a war movie or something like this, where they're on this big track and they're going, someone's pulling them from the left to the right while the camera operator's filming everything. It's also, this picture will show like kind of the difference between zooming in and dollying in. So if you're on a dolly track, that background stays small, everything stays, the framing's a little bit, on the top, the framing's a little bit more closed in, but what happens is the foreground and the background don't condense in on each other, but in the zooming in, the background will condense in and look bigger compared to, and closer to the foreground than if you dolly in. Dollying in is like walking towards it. Zooming in is just like magnifying it with a lens. And that's what the different shots will look like. So sometimes zooming in might be good. You might want the character to feel suffocated or to feel closer to the background. Maybe you want it to look like there's less space between them and the background for whatever reason. Zooming in might be a good way to do that. Choosing a lens that has a very long telephoto lens will also accomplish the same type of look.
Some of them mentioned zooming in post, but I don't know how much I recommend
No,
that because I haven't done
don't do
it.
I wouldn't do it. It's
Mess.
not gonna look the same as either. It's just gonna, people are gonna be able to tell pretty much. It's gonna look
Yeah, that's what I
Very
thought too.
amateur, I find.
I just wanted like,
Yeah.
have you guys ever done that? Like that.
like it's possible. It's just I think the more subtle, if you do it like that, the more subtle the better, the less movement. But yeah, I've seen some people try to like do a quick zoom, and I don't think it looks very good if you just do it in post.
First time and only time I ever did that was in film school. And then I changed it to, I'm like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah, because the resolution's going to be lower the more you
Yeah.
zoom in.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays with 4K, that's the whole 4K and 6K angle, is that you have the ability to zoom in and still maintain a quality, but it just
There's still
doesn't
going to
look-
be a difference.
that, and then it takes a lot of work to add, because you kind of have to animate it, because you have to keep it you got to keep it centered, so you're constantly like motion tracking and doing all this stuff to make it look like a zoom, if that's the look you're trying to go for. Otherwise it's just going to look like you're shrinking a picture or something,
Yeah.
or blowing up a picture.
Yeah. So just like
So this here,
so
this
always
here,
try to get it on set. Like
this works
that's what
because
I
they're
would
doing the direct opposite. Like they're kind of like starting small and then pulling out a little bit. So this would be a good example. I mean, you could do that for images and shots like this. Like if that's what you're trying to go for, I think that'd be a good idea. But just to zoom in to make it to zoom in on a picture in post to make it look like a zoom, don't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
I agree. That's why I always say, like, to always try to get everything on set if you can, because in post it doesn't work out as everybody thinks always. It takes a lot more work sometimes, and like you said, like if you're trying to get like a zoom shot, it's just easier to zoom in instead of trying to get it in post, because it's just not gonna look the same. It's gonna look weird. The motion blur is not gonna be the same. You know, there's gonna be a lot of different things. So. But these are just some like.
Yeah, just to be clear, I
It's
wasn't.
still the same
Just
shot
to be
type.
clear, I wasn't condoning it. I was just asking. Like, is that a real thing? 'Cause it sounded weird to me, and it looked weird in the video too. So I was like,
What is that thing?
I'm not sure what this actually is, but it is showing a trucking
creeping
shot.
out.
It's showing from the side what a dolly track would look like if it was from the side. Even though it's an animation, they still use the same type of shots.
Yeah, that's
Well, I
kind
think
of
it's claymation, actually. I don't know. It looks claymation.
oh crap, that's not gonna work.
It's just kind of showing what a dolly would do. and that's like a reverse follow. So you're like going away, following the actor from the other side, and you usually have, pre-set up dolly track, or if this was a Steadicam, you would have that person behind them, holding them and kind of like leading them, making sure they don't trip over something on the ground.
That looks like a truck dolly, possibly.
This one?
Yeah, or a car dolly.
Okay, maybe. All right. But yeah, dollies are just to get like a really smooth zoom in, or not zoom in, really really smooth movement from side to side or forward and back, without making the background condense in on the person, because that's what zooming in will do. So it's just to make it look like you're bringing your audience closer to the action, or closer.
So it basically adds depth to a scene, from what I can translate from what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it adds any kind of movement. I feel like adds depth to the scene, because if you just have a static scene like in old movies, you can see, like, even if it's a really good story, it tends to be a little more slow and boring, just because the camera's not doing anything. It's kind of like you're watching a play. And while those are good, but they're not the same as the movie. It's not the same as the camera moving, following the action, and really revealing what you want the audience to see. Oh, that's the other thing. Like these types of shots, the jib, dolly, crane, they're really good for like revealing or introducing a character. A crane shot is very good for establishing shots to show your location. Same as drone footage. Drones are good to really capture that location from a bird's eye view.
Every movement that you do,
dollying to like get a timing on a joke, or timing on showing a character, or something like that. I'm sorry, who was saying something?
Yeah, every movement that you do with a camera, it has to be motivated. You can't just move the camera just for the sake of moving the camera. It has to be there has to be a motivation, if you like. If you're going into like a personal topic, then it's usually something that you have to go. You have to dolly into the face of the actor, where they're sharing something personal. Or if you're seeing a reaction from something that's happening around them, and you want to see them, then what is normally a good way to do it is just to close in on the face to appreciate the reaction. Or if you don't want to see, one of the best things that you can use, and it's quite powerful, is the reveal. If you're like showing little bits pieces of stuff, and then in the end you end your shot with the most important part, or you show who the killer is, or you show who the person that's gonna get the news is, then that's more important. If you have somebody that's, let's think about this. You have a shot, you're following, you're tracking a shot with a person that has a gun in their hand, and you only see a gun in a hand, and then you're following this person, maybe from behind or from the side, and then the camera stops, and then the guy walks inside a building, and you pull back and you reveal that the building is actually a police department. Then you know that there's going to be a conflict, and it's going to be, you want to know more. So that's why it is so important to motivate every movement that you do with the camera. It's not just following somebody because you have to follow them. It's not just moving the camera, you doing a close-up because you want to do a close-up because the dialogue is boring. Then you have to work on the dialogue. So there's always had the need to have a motivation for every single camera move that you do.
Yeah, the same way every line has to be intentional, or should be intentional, every movement should be intentional as well.
Yeah, or else it
Like
just
the camera
gets distracting.
It always the reason you should move the camera is because of the story, the emotion in the scene, or maybe the character's looking somewhere and you're going to reveal that. Instead of just doing cuts, those are reasons why you would do movement. Like he said, if it's a very personal scene, you might want to close in like this. Maybe she's having a conversation that's really personal, and the more we're on her, we start closing in to see like the emotional reaction she's getting from her phone conversation. I'm not really sure what actually happens in the scene, but I'm just saying.
I think it was the first video. It didn't necessarily show like when to use each scene, but it did give you some really good ideas of ways to move the camera forward, backwards, panning, imitating a doll, not a doll, imitating a drone. I love those shots. And
I think
kind of,
Studio Binder really does well at explaining like why you might use certain movements.
oh yeah,
I like
definitely.
their
But I'm saying like that one, that first one we saw, I don't think it was Maddie's. I think it was someone else's. Actually showed some really good examples of how it would look really good and artistic, and then you watch a video to understand another video to understand when to use them, you know, but it's just to give you some interesting ideas of how to use the camera dynamically.
But yeah, I totally agree with what Jorge was saying, though. You always want to, the story is the most important thing to the whole, to everything. Whatever the actors are doing, if they're getting up and moving around, there should be a reason in the story or the scene. There should be an objective for them or a goal that they're trying to achieve. So that's why they're moving around, making kind of natural feeling to the story. The camera shouldn't move just because. It should move because it's something to do with the story. There's an emotional impact on it, or there's a reveal or something like that. Shouldn't just get cool shots to get cool shots. You should try to get cool shots that are
Tell
for
that to Michael Bay, because that's all he does. It's just cool shots. Speaking of,
Yeah.
all right,
I agree. Like,
let me get into something about this. So when you're doing,
Oh,
there you
boy.
go. Oh, for no reason. But anyway, understand
Okay,
that when you're,
Brian's got a vent right now, people.
yeah, when you're going from shot to shot, please understand that what I just said, you're going from shot. When you're moving the camera, you're going from shot to shot. So if you're dollying in, you're going from a medium or a wide shot to a close-up. So in a way, you're kind of getting two shots in one. Editors love it. Sometimes they don't, depending on how well you execute the shot or if it's not even necessary to have it. But always be mindful of like you're going from shot to shot. So if you're going to start from a wide and then move in, like Jorge was saying, what is the motivation for it? Because you could have just easily just cut or just not have cut at all. You know, why would you waste all that time to push in?
Yeah.
But then on that note, you have to have an understanding that lens choice plays a big factor in this and how these work. We didn't really cover that, but like
Right.
lens choice. So I want to talk about, I need to vent right now about the Army of the Dead. I just saw it a couple nights ago.
Okay.
And I'm kind of upset right now.
Is it good? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I've been hesitant to. Is it worth it?
Okay,
Or
let me tell
From
you
the
something.
sound of his voice, I don't think it was.
Do you wear glasses?
Yes.
no?
You will need to change your prescription. That's how bad the cinematography was good. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so like I posted on there. I posted on my Facebook. I was like, it looked like it was shot on a 50mm lens. And then a friend of mine who happens to know the focus puller on that movie was like, yeah, it was shot on a the whole film, 50 to 35mm lens. They shot that whole film on a 50 to 35mm lens. Are you kidding me? My eyes were hurting at the end of the movie.
Okay, Brian, explain, like, I get what you mean, but explain that to the people who don't know why that's a problem.
So a 50mm lens is considered a telephoto. So you have a lot of like blurry backgrounds. So to have a shot, like to shoot your entire movie, your eyes are going to hurt. And then there were shots where the main subject wasn't even in focus because like I feel the poor focus puller. Oh my God. And I'm talking like they didn't go back and fix it. Like they left it and it was like on there for like a good couple scenes. Like I was like, the dude is not even in focus. Like just go back and
You feel like Michael Bay at this point? Do you think he's just like, I got the paycheck, guys, we're good?
It's
It's not Michael Bay, right?
Oh, that wasn't a Michael Bay because he was
that's not
about Michael Bay.
No,
I thought that was the movie.
It's Snyder. It hurt. My eyes were hurting because like you're so okay, so 50 millimeters of telephoto lens. So like everything in the background is going to be like out of focus. Whatever your subject is going to be in focus, and whatever is in the background is going to be. My profile picture on here is shot on like a 35. So you have like a slight variant of out of focus, but you can still make out, like I have a driveway coming up to leading to where my body is, and then you can see the mailbox in the back. Well, no, it's cut off in the picture, but you can kind of make out what's going on in the background in my photo here. And Priscilla, you can make out what's going on in the background in your photo here. But on a 50, like all of that would be blurred. And it looks good on a photo, but when you're watching it constantly in a motion picture, your eyes start to hurt. And like they were doing movement shots on a 50, like they were doing tracking. And there were shots where they were trying to track somebody from left to right. And then because they're using a telephoto lens, the focus puller would shift from one subject to the next, but he didn't know what to shift to because there was just so much in the picture. You don't do a wide shot with the telephoto lens, and he did. So like you would see a wide shot and like people all the way in the back, like 100 feet away were in focus, but then everything in front of you was like out of focus. So it just hurts your eyes so much. I mean, go see it if you want to, but if you don't, you can just type in bokeh and look at a picture for 30 minutes, for 3 hours and 30 minutes, and it'll give you the same effect. It's just the same thing. I'm so upset right now. Oh God.
I'm really sorry, Brian.
Oh,
I feel your pain.
God, and this is the same guy who did
Justice League.
the Justice League movie.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty disappointing. I was like, oh, that sucks. Because
Oh
I
my-
love Watchmen. I love
everybody's
the
like
Justice League. I love.
everybody's getting it because he had like dead pixels in there, and people are figuring out like, are you gonna
I mean,
fix it?
maybe that's the editor's call. Like maybe
No, there's
it's
no
on the.
way.
Mm,
There's no
yeah,
way.
I'm trying to get him out of it, but yeah.
But anyway,
that should be his
the
responsibility.
lens choice, and this is the thing. Like the stuff looked okay, but then like it just doesn't work. This should be a lesson learned. Never ever. Like you have to have a variety of different. So a movie is based on a variety of different shots. You have wide shot, close up, and then you have to have a good even mixture of everything. So like you just don't like Mike. Like I talked about Michael Bay. Like if you watch Transformers, he did like all of these shots that didn't need to be in his movie. Like he'll do like a transitioning from a scene, and he'll have Optimus in truck mode driving down the road, and he'll be in a helicopter going past him in the other direction. He does like 8 or 9 of them in the movie, but it's like I don't need to see this. Just cut to the scene, Michael. Like just go to just get me where I need to be. Like do like you just can't. He just can't be normal and shoot like a normal thing. He has to have some kind of helicopter aerial shot. If he's not doing explosions, it's like something else. It's just too much. So like focusing too much on a lot of these camera movements, you have to understand, like Jorge was saying, you want to motivate it, but you don't want too much. You don't want to do too much. I mean, some of it is cool. Like some of it is cool. Like I've seen some really cool stuff, but some people really go above and beyond to try to make something look cool. And then at the end of the day, you're just like, well.
Yeah, if it isn't coming out in the story, then it's not going to come out no matter how hard you try. If you don't have a good story, if you don't have if you're not doing a good job with the cinematography, you can try to make the shots look as cool as you want. It can be the most, cool, the coolest cinematography ever. If the story doesn't match it, the story's not good. And if it's overdone and people can like, people aren't stupid. I feel like same thing with bad story writing, with bad script writing. If people can tell when you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, or with bad acting. I really feel like they can, but I don't know. Like it's hard because on one end I'm kind of like, oh, maybe it was experimental, but like not all experiments work. But then you said that they didn't even like focus it, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's.
I do not have patience
That's just lazy.
for films that are poorly shot or poorly written. I have no patience. I will walk out of the theater. I will switch off the movie, or I will play a game.
I'm starting to get to that age
That's how
too.
it is. Yeah, you
used
know
to
what?
hate
I've
it.
seen so many good films to waste my life looking at people that want to be creative, and the story is not holding itself on its own feet.
I
So
don't
it's
know anyone else, but I use. Oh, sorry, Jorge. Go ahead.
no.
Finish.
It's that's what it is, because if you don't have a strong enough story, and you don't have like I thought you were talking about this movie, but I don't even know. There's a zombie movie also that's on Netflix, and it was like trending a couple of days ago.
Oh, is that the one that's like a heist movie?
That's the
But
one I
with the
was just talking
zombies?
about. It's
I don't know.
terrible.
No, it's a movie that
Oh.
starts with a guy with like an army that's moving something like a huge box that
Yes,
has something in it.
the Army of the Dead. That's the movie I was just talking about.
Is that the one?
It's terrible. Oh my god, your eyes.
I couldn't
I
go.
need glasses now.
Yeah, I couldn't.
I was
go,
hesitant to watch it.
Like
maybe that's why.
after the first scene, I think when they drop the box, when they have the crash and the box, it was too long and nothing was happening, and the acting was awful, and I don't know. But I just switched it off.
I don't know about you, but there was a time in my
You
life.
didn't even get the full experience. I watched the
There-
whole thing. It was bad. My eyes.
Why'd you watch the whole thing? If it was that bad from the beginning.
Because I paid to see it. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
getting my.
Yeah, I don't know
Like, I
if it's
paid
the
for
same,
this
because
shit,
I
but
watched
finish
one
it.
on Netflix, and I don't know if you saw it in theaters.
I saw it in theaters. That's why my eyes are killing me.
Why, dude? If it was
Mm.
free on Netflix, make sure it's good first before you spend money on
I have to have the experience. I have to have that theater experience.
No, and that's
I only have
fantastic.
the theater
But
experience.
the
I
thing
only want the
is,
theater experience with movies that look like
a lot
they'd
of
be
things that
worth
you
it.
will see that
Or that I want to support.
they're not worth your time. Just like that. It's like you have there's so much good cinema out there to waste
Yeah,
your
you're
life. So,
you're not gonna get that money that you spent back. That's like the sunk cost fallacy, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether
You
you leave
already
at the
spent
end,
money. You
or
feel like
whether
you
you
can
leave in
watch
the
it to get the maybe.
Technically, you have half an hour. If you don't like the
Yeah,
movie
no.
first half hour, you can get your money back.
Man, I used to be the kind of person where I was at the point like, okay, I already committed to this thing. I need to finish it. Maybe it'll get better. I'm like, if it's not better,
it
30,
never
40 minutes in,
gets
it'll
better. Let me
never
tell
get
you something. In what probably I can say 30 years of experience, I can tell you guys for right now, if the movie doesn't get better after 10 minutes, it's not gonna get better.
Oh no, I give it at least 20. Like in our house, we have the 20-minute
No,
rule.
because
If it's
in 10
not,
minutes, look at the films that you like, that you look at your favorite films. By page 10, by minute 10, you'll see that all the conflict is there. And time it. Look at it. Look at the movie.
see, now
Next time you
Save the
see a
Cat
movie,
said that, and Coda was like,
time the movie.
no.
If you see that after 10 minutes, the whole conflict is not set up, it's not gonna get set up.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if I believe it that just because I've had movies that I love that I know that are slow starters. That sometimes that I don't like, I don't appreciate the beginning. I think it's a little slow, but then go and I really like them. They're not my favorite movies, but they're fun. I at least give them 20 minutes because I feel like some movies they're trying to build up stuff and they can have a little bit of a sloppy build up, but once they get the main things going, then they take off or not. But me and Coda, we have like a 20-minute rule because you wanted to make me watch stuff, and I wanted, like, we have a rule where it's my turn, you watch whatever I want, it's your turn, we watch whatever you want. But we can also like veto it and be like, okay, 20-minute rule, this sucks.
Yeah.
And he did that. He did that with the Princess Bride, which broke my heart. But that wasn't his style of movie.
Well, I'm pretty sure that he watched it to make you happy.
Oh no, he didn't watch
I
the whole
watched
thing.
part of it, but after
He
that,
watched 20 minutes. Same thing when
Yeah,
you
and
same
then it
thing
was
with
too
when
much for him.
No, he said it was too silly or something. I don't know. He doesn't like old movies, but
No,
love
and
that
I mean it's okay, but the thing is, it depends on the movie. For me, it's like I want to be told a story, and I want to be told a story that keeps me engaged. And if the thing can't keep me engaged in 10 minutes, which is a long time, I mean, talk to anybody in the film industry. How long is a minute? And
oh yeah,
how long it can get in a story if you don't move the action in 1 minute.
Yeah.
yeah, like we were saying in Save the Cat, because you said that, and I remembered Coda and I reading Save the Cat. He says that he will actually go, I think it was 20 minutes, it wasn't 10. He will go to either the 10th page or the 20th page. I don't remember which one it was. But he said that if the conflict is not already built in that time frame, if he doesn't see a certain thing, he will not read the rest of the script. He will specifically go to that page, and then he's like, okay, there's no conflict built yet. There's still chugging it along. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And Coda was like, what? No. But when we stopped and thought about it, it was like, oh, we only give movies like 20 minutes. So
yeah, and it all
makes
depends
sense.
on the style of films that you like. I mean, you can just appreciate experimental films that where nothing actually happens, and you see a whole film that is like dust collecting in the film. You know, it's like that actually was a thing happening like a long time ago. There was
Yeah.
this guy that I think I don't remember who it was. I would lie, but it was this guy that put a film reel and then let the film drag on the floor, and it was collecting dust, and that's what was projected on the screen. And people
Oh.
were sitting there expecting something to happen, and nothing happened ever. So it was an experiment. So
Talk
the
about a
thing
waste
is,
for your money.
you can be as patient as you want, but in my opinion, for my type of films, my time is I want to be told a story, and I want to see conflict,
I
because
do like to
that's what
analyze what's wrong.
make us that's what makes us engage easy to see, well, I would fix it this way, and then you keep learning new information about, but
Yeah.
he can't fix it that way, or she can't fix it that way, and what is she going to do? And that's what keeps somebody engaged. What's going to happen next?
Like Sarah said, though, to Sarah's point, there are movies where I did learn a lot of what not to do from them. We watched Wedding Crashers because everyone was like, it's such a good movie. We hated it. It was so bad. We hated it so much. And the entire time we're like, this writing sucks. These lines suck. What's going on? And we kept waiting. Like, we chuckled sometimes, but we kept waiting to see what happens, because we were like, okay, this is going to pick up, right? And then the end, I was like, what? Because sometimes the movie is good, but if that ending sucks, it makes you so mad. You wish you would have never watched the movie at all. But it made us actually look at it from a standpoint of, okay, let's learn. What would we fix in this? How would we fix this? And there are things that can be learned. But to your point, Jorge, it's like that. It's like, I think it depends a lot on what you want out of your movies. If you're the kind of person that enjoys studying movies, the good and the bad, and learning from them and appreciating the ones that are good and learning from the ones that are bad, that's great. But if you just love movies and just want to watch them and learn, and yeah, you can learn from what the bad ones did wrong without having to watch a whole 2 hours. If that's just how your brain works, that's how your brain works. I feel like it depends very much on the person. Like I said, I used to be the person that would wait till the end, waiting for it to get better, or like, all right, I already invested, especially with TV shows. Holy crap. I invested 4 years of my life on this. I am investing the other 3. Screw. And it was just 3 years of disappointment. One after the other, after the other, after the, I should have given up while I was ahead. So, I don't know. Like, it's hard. I think it depends a lot on the person. For me, I think the older I get, the less patient I'm getting. And I'm like, life is short. I want to enjoy it. I want to watch. There are so many good movies out there. Why am I wasting my time with this?
I find that very interesting, Priscilla. Just because, I've been there as well. Like there's sometimes where I get like really impatient. I'm like, why am I doing this following through? And I'm like, no, discipline wins. We're gonna follow this through because today is just we're like,
I
you
know
never
following
know.
through,
So
but why do I have to follow through with a crappy movie? I'm talking about
That's
following
true.
through with stuff that is important. For example, last night I
Oh.
followed through with not eating more Ferreros. It was very hard. It was super hard. It was like right in front of me. The chocolate was right in front of me. And I was like, no, I already had 2. I'm not having more. I'm not having more. I'm following through with this. And I had like 1 this morning, just as a cheap thing. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's-
one thing is discipline, and another thing is masochism.
Exactly.
is what? Sorry, George.
Masochism.
It's just suffering.
Oh yeah.
Suffering for the sake of suffering, or just because you like suffering.
If you think a movie is bad to the point where it's like, you know what, this is so bad it's funny. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched, honey, what's it called? Is it
The
like
Room?
to the end?
Room?
What's it
Oh
called?
God, I couldn't watch The Room.
No, I couldn't watch it. But what is it? Is it World's End or something?
At
Oh
World's
no,
End,
no, no, no! That was a terrible movie too.
Pirates
Oh
of
my
the
it was
god,
awesome.
no. Oh my god, it left me
Wait,
so
no.
conflicted.
Wait, are you talking about
Sausage
Pirates of
Party.
the
This is the end.
Caribbean?
No, this is the end. It is
Sausage
a
Party was a bad
weird.
movie.
It is a weird
Oh
ass
yeah, that was
movie.
dumb.
This is the end has like all of the comedians I hate. It has like Jonah Hill and
Oh,
what's
that
his-
yeah, that was a bad
and-
movie. Yeah.
and
James Franco
and James
I liked
Franco
it.
and the
Emma.
other stoner guy that I don't like.
and the
Rogen.
girl from Harry
Seth
Potter.
Rogen.
How
Yeah,
do you
it
not
has all the
like Seth
comedians.
Rogen?
I know I don't like him. I'm not.
I
Gonna,
like him.
but like all of the stupid stoner comedians you can think of are in that movie, and then some. There's like Rihanna's in that movie. It's basically about the apocalypse, and all of these celebrities in this mansion, like doing coke and partying, whatever. And then the apocalypse happens, and everyone's like taken into like river of fire because the floor
Some
breaks.
are taken to heaven, and the others, and some those I guess weren't let into heaven.
It's
were
like
had
the
same
rapture or
suffer, yeah.
something
It's
happening.
hilarious. Like part of me was like, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. And then another part of me was like, this is hilarious and genius, and I can't stop laughing. Like it was so weird, and it left me so conflicted. Like this is bad, but it's
Have you
bad
seen
in a
Sausage
fun
Party?
way.
I loved
Priscilla?
it. I thought it was really well done. It was so stupid that it was funny. But that's
And
very,
my favorite
that's a very
scene.
like hard line to be on for comedy because someone who can like there's different kinds of stupid humor. And
Yeah.
I feel like, so I might like some kind of stupid humor like that when someone
But
else
he's very
likes stupid humor
selective
that's
with
more
his
like Three
stupid humor.
Stooges. There's like different ways of doing stupid humor. So
I love
I
White Chicks. I can admit that's a really stupid
I
movie.
don't like that movie.
Coda hates it. I love
Hey-
that movie so
Hey
much.
Priscilla, have
Well-
you seen Sausage Party?
No, and I never will. That's
Good.
masochism right there.
Sarah, you raised your hand.
Yeah. I was just gonna say you could have one movie and you could just be in a place and you could watch it and be like, this movie is the best. And then you can watch it again and be like, what the hell was I thinking? Or the
No,
other way
definitely
around.
White Chicks.
It's
I
so
rewatched
subjective,
it.
and your mind state too, like where you are and who you're watching it with, can also change a movie. You should try that actually.
No, definitely. When you're watching it with someone else and you get their perspective, I think that even if people laugh with you, it kind of makes you want to laugh as well sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know. It's
Well, like,
weird.
Is it a good movie or do you just like the people you're watching it with?
Yeah.
Well, it
But
all
anyway,
depends.
changes the lens.
When you think about
Vice
it,
versa.
if you go watch a movie, whenever, especially when you're doing this, when you're trying to learn and you want to do and you want to dedicate your life with it, this happens to actors, and I know Sarah's gonna be with me on this. Whenever you go on, when you start acting school, and then you go and watch a theater play or something, or you watch a movie, you're gonna say, "Oh, this guy made a mistake here," or "Oh, you know what, man, I don't think he's a good actor." And you think that you are better and that you could do it better, and that's a problem when you're just starting out, because it's a lot of ego that happens, and this is going beyond that. It's more of a like a personal taste, like you were
I feel like it
saying.
is.
If you go and you say, well, you know what, I don't think he did a good job or whatever. Well, it depends. Just like you said, you can have an amazing movie. That's you can have a movie that you like that for you is amazing, but several other people think that it's garbage.
Yeah.
So it really comes down. It's very subjective. But the
Yeah.
thing is, if you have a type of movie that you know that you don't like, and you see the things, you don't really need to watch a whole lot of bad movies to know that the good movies that you like are the ones that have some sort of a formula. So if you have that formula, which is basically conflict, that's what it turns like. It really comes out. It's like what's the whole point of telling a story is how we deal with conflict, even if it's a romantic comedy, or if it's just a comedy. There's always a conflict that needs to happen, and that's why we want to be told how other people overcome conflict all the time. So that's why it is so important for me in this case to have something that shows me that there's a conflict and the conflict is clear and there's only one theme that I can follow. Because if there's like 20 themes that have to do with racism and then have to do with whatever crazy things are happening in the world, well, it's hard for me to follow more than one theme, you know?
Yeah.
So it's important for me to understand what the deal of the movie is, what the movie is going to be about, and be able to follow that. And they having good storytelling skills is going to help me follow the story.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same thing with, for example, you look at someone's acting, you don't necessarily, if there's an actor you don't like his acting or the way that he portrays things, or camera movements. We're learning about camera movements right now. There are camera movements that I hate, like shaky cam drives me insane. I don't really like it. It takes me out of the movie. For some people, they think that's stylistic and awesome and everything. So I think movies, just like everything, it's very subjective. It's very much what resonates with you, what you appreciate. And it's okay not to like something and not to want to watch it because you know that it's not going to appeal to you. You know, if you hear something that sounds interesting and you want to try it, of course. But we're veering off topic. But that was an interesting discussion, probably best to have after the meeting. Next time we'll do better on that. Moving on.
Yeah. No, like I agree. Like it just depends. Like a lot of this, like everybody's saying, like everything is very subjective. That's why you'll have certain comedies or certain movies that are too gruesome for some people, or the humor is too stupid for them, or it's too crude, or it's very subjective, all of this stuff, because it's an art form.
And it can change on your maturity level too, like Sarah said. There are movies that I loved when I was a teenager or a kid, and I watched today and I was like, wow, I liked this.
Yeah, and that's completely normal because like if you are going through life, your opinions and your lenses is naturally going to shift through time. So
or vice versa, movies that I thought were boring as a child and today I love. So
exactly.
That's definitely true too. Yeah, but that's only if you're like a kid. I feel like if once you become an adult, I feel like
I don't know. There's some
you
movies
don't
I
really
never
like
gave a
watch
chance as a teenager.
What?
There were some movies as a teenager that I was like, oh, that sounds boring, or I watched a few minutes of it and I was like, I can't relate to this. Especially movies about older people. Yeah, I'm talking about like when you're an adult and you rewatch a movie on the lens of an adult, you can see a lot of things that you couldn't see as a kid.
No, but I was
Like
meaning,
all the hidden jokes
like
in
watching
Disney?
a movie as an adult and then going back to that same movie later as an older adult. It's usually around the same.
Oh,
Your
gotcha.
perception's usually the same. I mean, it can change, but most of the time you kind of like have an idea.
Yeah, I feel like it depends. If it's early 20s, it might completely change from early 20s to early 30s. Because
Like all
that's
the hidden Disney jokes?
That's a huge gap in our, like, you grow a lot in those years. But yeah, you want to move on then?
Yes. All right. So I actually wanted to say, we were talking about Michael Bay earlier, and they were saying like how he has a lot of the same type of shots. I think they said he uses a lot of arc shots. Is that right?
He uses arcs. But he does a lot of these helicopter shots. Like if you go back, I think you're about to pull up that Bad Boys 2 shot. He does a lot of those as well, but he's commonly known for like these helicopter high sky shots, at magic hour shots. And if you watch Transformers, he's very big
Girls
on
in tight clothing shots. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, he's very big on and then that's another thing too. Like a lot of these shots that he does, some of not this helicopter one, but like some of the shots, or majority of the shots in Transformers were like CGI anyway. So there's a combination between, you have to figure out the combination of what is, when he's switching into CGI, or when is he like not in CGI, or when is he like going.
But you would
practical
say
camera.
that the biggest issue with him is that his shots don't have purpose.
Well, yes, but I was actually going to mention that it's not like some people say it's like a signature thing, but usually when it's multiple times done in the same movie and it's like these really cool looking shots, they're usually like, they start getting repetitive and they start being less cool seeming because it's like it's done. Oh, this is
as far as signature. Oh, sorry, honey, finish. Oh,
like it could be a signature move, but then when it's done, like, okay, Zack Snyder, I love his style, but there's way too much slow motion. There's way too much close-ups with the slow motion, and it's like, it's cool the first few times, but after he does it, 5-6 times in the same movie, it starts getting like, okay, I see why this is so long, because you have an hour of slow motion in here. And so I feel like with just like
that do not need to be and do not need to be there and run for way too long as well. Like some scenes just never end.
Yeah, so just like any of these types of shots or anything like this, it's like you want to be really, you want to make it sure it's to do with the story, but you also want to make sure that you're not repeating it over and over again, whether it's cool looking or whether it's just a basic camera move. You want to make sure you're kind of mixing everything up so that it doesn't get stale and it doesn't get repetitive, because repetitive is also boring. That's all I was.
And if you're focused too much on your signature, like I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard that a good cinematographer is one that you're not supposed to notice them. You're not supposed to notice the cinematography as much. You're supposed to have it blend into the story, and it can be beautiful. And yes, it can stand out in the sense like, oh, that looks gorgeous, but not focusing so heavily on it to where it detracts from the story. So I feel like if you focus too much on your signature, you're not going to focus as much on the story. Oh, I have to get my signature in here somewhere. Like, if you have to, shouldn't you focus more on making it fit into the story and having a purpose?
Yes, because
I've seen that happen with, like, especially with people trying to mimic others, like when they're trying to mimic
Scorsese. No, not Scorsese.
No, who does Pulp
Tarantino.
Fiction? Yeah, Tarantino. Yeah, I've seen so many people try to mimic that, and it's so obvious. And yeah, you might be able to get a cool stylistic shot, but then they overdo it, and it's just it doesn't. It takes me out of the movie anyway.
What were you saying, Brian?
I was just gonna say, Army of the Dead is the perfect example of why cinematography should be incorporated into the story. Oh my God! You just see it. Just go watch.
Honey, just making it clear, Brian. This time it was Brian's fault for getting out of the, because it's always my fault, Brian. So this time it's your fault, and
it's still your fault, Priscilla.
It's still your fault. I brought it up, but you guys ran your mouth about it the whole time.
Exactly. Thank you.
You just threw yourself under the bus.
I just want to be clear that I don't blame him for everything.
Come on, Brian. He said something, then Jorge said something, then I said something, then Sarah said something. So it was a group effort.
Said something the longest though. Does everybody agree? Does everybody agree?
All
right. No, come on. I'm gonna move on anyway.
Yeah.
I was just bringing up the fact that you don't want to use the same shots over and over again because it starts to get old. Your movie's 2.5 hours, maybe it's an hour and a half. You don't have too much time, so you don't want to repeat yourself too much.
No, you really have to. If you write a draft and whatever, and you notice the repetitions, that's when you're supposed to, before the second draft, start to break apart then. And sometimes you'll like look down, you're like, okay, this is pretty good, but I mean, we need a little bit more interesting points here, and here. And that's when you actually have to do the work and maybe find the new information.
And
so
you
it's
have to learn to
that.
sacrifice. You have to learn to sacrifice those shots because
You have to learn to kill your babies.
let's say, okay, you have unlimited time. You have like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You're doing a Netflix movie where you can have as long as you want. Like, just because you have longer time doesn't mean that you have to. I think that's also a huge problem with Zack Snyder. I'm pretty sure his movies are huge and they don't have to be that huge. Of course they're huge, but I remember watching Watchmen. I remember watching the new Justice League, and I'm like, there's scenes in here that don't have to be this long. There's scenes in here that are not necessary. You could have cut, even though I liked it, you could have cut a few scenes. And I feel like, I know that's hard, especially for script writers, because it's your story, it's your baby, it's something you put time into, but you need to look at it critically as well. And that's where it helps to have someone have multiple opinions look at it and listen to those opinions and see, okay, this is dragging out
what they think.
Yeah,
just always take everything into consideration.
Yeah, just consider it. And like, is this necessary? How is this necessary? Could I live without it? You know,
Yeah,
does the point still get across?
It's an interesting one because it becomes like subjective too. But I mean, it depends what like the point of it is. The point of it is, and as you kind of like move up in levels and who you're trying, like, I don't know how to say that. Like the bigger it is, the bigger. So if it's like gonna be like a big movie or something, then yes, you have to be so nitpicky. You have to cut things apart, take scenes out, insert scenes that kind of maybe add to the story or make an engaging plot twist that you can kind of add in. Or yeah, that's kind of what I think too. You kind of have to like have it, write it out, have like the blueprint, and then kind of like dissect it and just make it that much better. And that's how you take it to the next level, I think.
I think for me, the biggest issue is people, myself included, we have a lot of tendencies to, when we're writing a story or when we're writing a script, we already made a point and we end up repeating that point, like having multiple scenes that are saying the same thing when you don't need that many scenes. You don't need that many lines to say the same thing over and over again in different ways. You already got that point across. You don't need this extra scene. But you're attached to it. And I feel like that's just me in talking in general, because I'm always afraid that my point isn't going to be clear. And I'm always afraid of like saying the wrong thing. So I over explain. And I think that that's also an issue in script writing for some writers, is just they have way too many scenes that are saying the same thing and that don't need to be there.
I can and can't agree with that. I mean, in some cases, yes. In other cases, you can, I guess, like if it's done in a way that is purposeful or makes sense for the story, because like
every scene has to be purposeful. Yeah.
But
if you already got a point, why are you repeating it?
Because if the dialogue comes, it's not only just about the dialogue, right? So it's also about what's said underneath the dialogue, and that can also kind of change things and warp things and go with your vision. So it really depends on how many layers you're putting in to the film. Because if you only have an emphasis just on dialogue,
not just dialogue, but I mean every scene must be purposeful. When I say repetition, I don't mean just in dialogue. I mean in scenes in general as well. You know.
I was just meaning in shots, what we're talking about today.
I
was just meaning repetitive shots, or
that's
like
what I'm saying too. Like, you want to have a shot that says a thing multiple times. Look at this again, look at this again, you know? And I feel like the audience is like, we get it.
I guess so, but I mean, yeah, I can see I can see what you're saying.
Maybe we can discuss it better after the meeting, because it's like 11:30 already. So.
Yeah.
But we can probably discuss it tomorrow in the screenwriting group as well.
I'm just going to finish explaining these things, and then I'm going to show what we're doing, and then stop the recording because it's getting kind of late.
Sounds good.
So I'm just going to quickly go through these. Drone footage, it's like we said, it depends where you are. If you have, there's people that have a license to do it because it's difficult. It's a very demanding skill set to be able to learn how to use it. And if you're in an area that does need that license, then you actually won't legally be able to use that thing. in that area unless you have a license. But they're really good to get aerial shots when you don't have, you know, a helicopter or something where you can get those nice aerial shots to show the location or to zoom in on the character. Or, you know, you can get good establishing shots. You can get good aerial shots. You can also mimic not drones. You can also mimic
Helicopters.
helicopters. You can mimic a jib shot. You can mimic a crane shot, depending on how well. It's not going to look exactly the same. There's a reason that they're still using all these different types of equipment, but a drone really helps you to be able to get a lot of different kinds of movement, and it's really smooth. It just depends on, like, there's a lot of different versions out there, but something like that you can get, you wouldn't really be able to get with anything else.
Yeah, drones are getting a lot cheaper, thankfully, over time. And the parts are getting a lot easier to replace as well, which is really good because they break very easily.
Yeah, there's so many interesting things and like ways that you can innovate and become more dynamic. I would say, again, don't be too afraid about being too repetitive off the top. You know, as you get more experience and you're really going up there, then you're going to have to care a lot more about that. But in the beginning, I would say probably don't worry as much because you can always trim the fat later. And it's better to do if you kind of be like, can't do this, can't do that, can't do that. You fill your mind up too much with can'ts instead of being like, why don't you focus here, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah.
And then on the review.
After the recording's over, we can talk about that a little better because, like,
okay,
it's nothing to do with the drone. Sorry, it's just because Coda wants to end it.
Got it.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, I mean,
Then you
can.
can.
I was just saying to you. But anyway.
Okay. Then it's just me. Go ahead, Sarah. Finish.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, just like so don't think about those things while you're doing it. Think about those things on the review, on the trim the fat. So if I'm like, I'm just gonna use an analogy. So if I'm going to sing, because I sing, record a song, I'm not gonna be like, there's a few things I think about for the performance and the delivery, but I'm not gonna think about all the extra stuff till the review. I'm gonna look back when you go back.
Well, my only final point is you also have to think about if you're applying for film festivals, you have a quota, you have an amount of time that the movie has to be. If it's a production, they're giving you a certain time frame, they're giving you a certain limit. So at the end of the day, a certain budget. So at the end of the day, yeah, you have those restrictions and you're gonna have to abide by some of them at least. So you will have to end up thinking
like she's saying, there's always ways you can try to work around it. If you really need or want a certain shot, you can always try to find ways to work around it.
Definitely. And again, like, all I'm saying is don't think about these things going in so that you're afraid, because it's easier to remove stuff than it is to be like, oh, I was too nervous to try that, and then I don't have it.
Yeah, I think especially in the beginning, that's good. Just practice as much as possible. Get as much experience. Yeah, definitely. All right, Coda. Sarah talked. I have no permission. Go ahead.
All right. So does anybody have any questions about drones or comments about drones? Has anybody here used a drone?
I own one.
Do you fly it yourself, or do you have other people fly?
I do fly it myself, but right now I kind of broke it by mistake.
How did you break it?
I don't know. I had it in the case, and then now half the propellers won't fly. So I got to figure out what's going on with that.
Brian, have you ever used one?
Yeah, I have one. I have a really old it's a DJI drone. I have it.
I know that one.
Or DJI, whatever. Yeah, I have one of those. And the thing is with the drone, it's just like a lot of this other equipment we went over, like the gimbal and the what was it? The gimbal
Steadicam?
and the Steadicam. Those are great, and they look, the shots you get are great, and it looks like specifically the Steadicam. You would think like the Steadicam would be the way to go. Like that's going to be, because with the Steadicam you can pretty much get a lot of those shots you could get with the dolly, and a lot of the shots you can get with the slider. So you would think automatically, oh, well, let me just get the Steadicam, and I can just not have a slider or not have a dolly. But the thing is, with that in the drone, it just takes an extremely long time, not only to set up, but then you're going through like technical errors and stuff like that to try to work it out. And not to mention like the drone, the battery only lasts on that thing for like, you only have like a good 45 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah,
of flying
yeah.
time. So you really have to get your shot down. Like,
Yeah, one of the biggest things that the guy was saying was use every bit of your battery, have purposeful shots as well. Like map out, go there first, look at the place, look at what places you think you might want to shoot, the ideas of the shots you want.
yeah. And I keep mentioning it. I mention this in every meeting. I'm like, the more gear you get and the more advanced you get, the harder it gets. It doesn't get easier. So like you're thinking like, oh, I'm just going to get this piece of gear, or this piece of equipment. And the more stuff you stack up on, it's like the harder it gets. The more work you have to do. Yeah, the more setup time, the more the gimbal is like, everybody's like, oh man, the gimbal is a headache. And the thing is, you have to have the right camera for that. You can't just put like I would love to put like a red. You can't put a red. I mean, I'm pretty sure they make.
Oh, that's a good point. That was something
Yeah.
very important that they said, that not every gimbal, like sometimes the expensive gimbals won't work on a lighter camera, for example, because sometimes that camera needs that weight, or vice versa. Yeah. So you really have to get a gimbal that's compatible with your camera.
Well, they also said it's a headache to like set up because
It is a
you
headache.
have to balance it every time and
Yep.
pre-calibrate.
So it's like you gotta give yourself extra time, not only to light your shot, but then you got to give yourself even more time to get the gimbal all squared away and stuff like that. And it doesn't really matter how experienced you are with it, like you're still gonna run into those kinks.
Yeah. Yeah, like
So-
one of the people are even saying that like they've been using theirs for years, and then like when they got on set one day, it was just like, oh, this piece didn't work, and so then like the whole thing doesn't work because it's all these different things working together to balance it out.
Mhm.
So they said it could be a real headache, and that's why they were saying like, so sometimes in certain cases Steadicam's a lot better because it's it's not using battery power, and it's not or electric or whatever you're using to power it. It's manual, so it doesn't have that, it doesn't mess up as much basically.
And then with Steadicam, the thing is with Steadicam, and the reason why I'm not a big fan of, I mean, they look great, the shots look great and all, and I've tried some Steadicam before, and it's pretty cool, I guess. But you get into this mode, you get into this mode where it's like you get lazy. You're like everything you're doing is on this Steadicam when you need to be on sticks or you need to be on a slider, but I'll just Steadicam it. You just kind of get in the zone where it's like you're not really doing what's best because you're that lazy, because it takes a lot of time to take it off and on the Steadicam and set everything up, that like once you're on it, you're on it. You know what I mean? You just don't want to get off of the Steadicam. So it can make, some of these devices can make or break you. Like they can make you lazy, they can make you work harder, or they can, so you got to keep that in mind too with all this gear and stuff. You got to really put in your head like what gear is the best gear for you. If you do a lot of moving shots like this, then maybe you want to go with a Steadicam. But if you're like a more traditional guy like myself that likes the tripod, you might want to look into a slider or a tripod. And I love the jibs and the cranes. Those are my go-tos. Like if I can get a good, I will make it work. Like I will have to get a crane shot or a jib shot. Like at least in every film, I'm like, I gotta have at least one.
Yeah, because I feel like yes, every part is important and has its purpose, but you don't need to have every single piece of equipment. I feel like a lot of independent filmmakers feel like they need to have all the gear, and I just don't think that's necessary. If I think you should figure out your style and what you work with the best, and have the essentials and the basics. And if you want a specific shot, rent a thing. Like, why have that money for something that you're barely going to use or that you don't even know how to use yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also said, like just make sure when you do try to go get all this stuff, don't try to just be like, I'm going to get the most expensive, best.
Definitely.
Because like we said, if you don't have a camera that has that weight, like one of those professional heavyweight cameras with all the attachments and all the things, it's not going to be the right piece of equipment maybe for whatever camera you have, because it was designed for those bigger, heavier cameras, or designed for a 3-person camera setup. with like an AC helping do the focus and someone helping hold the camera or pull the dolly. So anytime anybody's looking into buying any of this stuff, just make sure you're looking into how it's used, and if you're going to be able to have the personnel to do it. Like if you're doing it one man, then make sure you're getting a one man piece of equipment. Don't get something that you're going to need 3 people for. Just like they were talking about with certain cameras, they were saying some people will buy a camera that, I think they were saying Ari Alexa, or what is it called? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Alexa or the Ari.
Yeah, they said like that one has the 2 sides of the camera specifically for, one side has all the things where the assistant camera can help out because it was made for a more professionalized production where you have an assistant camera every time. And so the first AC could be on that side of the camera while the camera operator or the DP could be on the other side running the camera. And they said that if it's just a one, you're the only one on the camera, you're the only one doing anything, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to control that camera because it was made for 2 people or more. So it's just stuff to keep in mind when you're looking for gear. So yeah, that was just my little comment on that.
No, that's good. That's good, actually. Yeah, you really, if you're gonna buy like a piece of equipment, really know why you're buying it and what you're gonna be using it for. That makes a lot more sense. Otherwise, why not? If you just need it for a short time, why not just rent it?
Yeah.
Right? Because if it's just gonna be like for one thing. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree.
All right. So to capture these types of shots, you'd usually either use a dolly or a Steadicam. You can use a crane, but you wouldn't be able to go necessarily all the way around unless you have like a really large. I don't know how you would get it without capturing the crane. But the main way I would think about getting this shot is probably with either a dolly or a.
So they can do, you can do what you didn't mention was you can do variations of it. You can combine the two. You can put a crane, a jib, or a crane on a dolly track as well, and kind of get like a double motion going, like going up and then coming down as you're pulling forward. And then you have cranes that extend and retract at the same time, which also kind of gives like that dolly motion as well. The professional cranes have like robotic moving parts where you can control the head and all from the rear of the crane, and you can see everything from a monitor. But yeah, cranes can pull off a lot of stuff, but they're really heavy. They're really they take up a lot of space. So you kind of gotta ask yourself, like, what are you using it for? And I know a lot of sporting events they use cranes. They use a lot of those the wire dollies like we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cranes are very specific. They're for very specific shots, I feel like. So if you want a crane,
they are versatile, but like you do need the space and you do need the setup time. So it just depends really on like what you're shooting for. Like all.
No,
like,
I mean
all
specific in the sense like very specific shoots. Like, will you have enough room for that thing? Do you really need it? That that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you don't always need a crane. So I feel like that's one of the things that unless I had a lot of extra cash and room, I wouldn't spend money on.
But yeah, I agree.
But that's just me.
Creative. I find that being creative and getting what you really need is smart because you're going to get a lot more out of it, and you're going to be able to challenge yourself more with using what you have. And then as you add everything, it starts to work more for you, I guess, if that makes any sense.
It's the bad boy shot. So this is like a combination of CGI and just a whole bunch of like.
Is it Steadicam or do you know?
It's a combination. So like when they shift you through that door right there, then it's shifted in the CGI, and then it's a combination of both. Yeah, we really didn't go over that too. Like a lot of times CGI is what's the thing that's making the movement happen, going in between CGI and out. The movie, I think it was like 1819, that old war movie that was shot all in one shot. So they would find specific spots to cut, like they would cut there and then they would go into this other moving shot and then they're going to cut again, cut. So that's how they shot that entire movie in one shot. They would find places where they were going to film a scene and then they would get to a certain spot. So they really had to not really rehearse, but because there really wasn't because they would have been rehearsing forever. But
Yeah.
they used, I know the actors they got were theatrical actors, so they were very big
Had to
on,
be very intentional with every single shot, is what you mean?
not really intentional, but they had to hit, the camera guy had to hit his mark to end the scene. So like when this camera here is going around, it's going around, it's going around, it's going around, and it's going to cut right now. It cut, you could actually see the jump cut, and here, boom, it's cut again.
Yeah.
And it gives the illusion like it's in one shot, but it's not. It's really, they find places to cut. Like they have to find a place to cut, and that's all in post and in editing. And it's a combination of the camera movement and then post. Sometimes they'll use like I can't remember
Yeah,
the
like
name of it.
I think did they not make a cut? Wait, on the, I think they used the lighting there to kind of hide the cut. On the,
You can see
am I
the cut
wrong?
there, here, and then they cut there.
Right there, yeah.
You can use lighting too. Like if you use like a flash or flare or something like that to kind of make like the whole screen white, that's the easy way to cut. Or shadows. Like if you're going into a really dark shadow, that's the easy way to cut from one shot to the next, from one moving shot to the next. Another thing that I guess you guys didn't really go over as far as these moving shots is that you want to keep in mind of the direction you're going. So like if you have one shot that's going from left and right, but then you're cutting to an over the shoulder that's doing the same thing, you kind of want to go in a different direction. So like if you have one shot going left and right, then the reverse would probably go from right to left, because otherwise it's going to look like you're giving the same motion to the same cut, and it's just going to look weird. So
Gotcha.
yeah, moving shots can actually make or break you in some way if you're going to be intercutting the shots together, kind of like
I've
this,
actually
but-
seen that with like certain people's reels. They'll put two shots going in the same direction, and it looks kind of like if you were taking an actual film reel and just pulling it across the screen.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's
like
almost
they're both going
as
to the left, so it looks like it's just a train going
Yeah.
by or something.
it's almost as bad as crossing the line of action. It's almost or breaking the 180 rule. It's just this. It's the same sentiment. It's like you're going in the same direction, even though you're not crossing the line. It's just that camera movement kind of gives you that feel like you are. It's just weird. So you want to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Cool. Anybody
Yeah,
else have any
awesome.
questions or comments on these types of shots?
This is the Michael Bay, famous Michael Bay.
I love it.
This is what I was telling you about. He does this in Transformers a lot too. This is cool. This isn't what I was meaning by like.
I'd also like to point out, everyone, that we are not like, what's the expression I'm looking for? Shitting on Michael Bay right now. If you like him, that is okay. But you do not have to leave this group. It is all right. We're not shaming you for liking Michael Bay. It's okay. Just wanted to make that clear, because sometimes we can get me especially, we can get a little passionate about things and seem like we're dogging on things. We don't like it. It's not our style. That's okay if you do.
That's cool, yeah.
Continue,
Yeah.
Brian.
But anyway, this is the famous Michael Bay movie. This is what I was talking about. I was talking about in Transformers, where he has Optimus Prime driving down the road, or he'll do the thing where like the Transformers are like in transit from one spot to the next, and he'll get like the hero shots of them coming down the road, and it's like that throughout the whole movie.
Yep.
So
And
it's
that's
like
why, it starts to get old after you start watching it. It's
yeah,
like,
and the last two
again?
Transformers movies were like super long, and I was like, you can cut that out and save you plenty of running time in this movie. Like we don't need to see all these hero shots. Like he's just going for it for no reason. This is like an effect from a computer. That's pretty cool though. But Yeah, there's different ways of getting different types of effects and different types of motion and different types of movement with your camera.
Yeah, there's a
Like
lot of
so.
different equipment you can use and a lot of different ways you can be creative with it. Like this. This isn't the same shot, but this would be, kind of be getting that same kind of feel of
Yeah,
what this would be.
the other shot was kind of like the Matrix combination of Matrix. So like here he goes and then he cuts, or you just cut. But like as soon as the camera was going to get to the ground, they cut to another shot going in the same direction to kind of give that continuous movement. But I also would like to say that when you guys are starting out, you guys are going to be going through phases when you start out. Like specifically, if you're going into film school, you're going to notice like you're going to start off with the wide shot phase where everything is wide. Then you're going to learn how to do close-ups, and then you're going to get into this what I call the close-up phase, where everything you shoot is going to be close-ups, and then you're going to get sick of that. And then you're going to move on to another phase, which is like the medium shot, until you get to a point where it's like you have an even medium between all the shots, you know. But it's good to just have, you know, be aware that there are you can get caught up in phases where you learn something new and it just becomes like everything that you
It's
do.
so much fun. It's so cool. I love it. I mean, everything kind of like that.
What are you talking
Like
about?
the shot is so cool. I
I'm not
want to
gonna-
do it in everything.
See, there you go. So
Kind of like that.
now when Priscilla makes her movie, it's gonna have everything is gonna be
I'm joking.
that's gonna be her signature. Like she's gonna end the movie like that, and then the credits are gonna roll up, and then boom.
Yeah, every time.
Okay,
That's
if
how
I
you know the movie's gonna end.
if I become a movie maker and you see my signature everywhere, you can start calling me, giving me a reality check because I've developed an ego.
No,
Definitely.
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna talk about you in the iCloud meetings that we have.
Gotcha. You're just gonna be super passive aggressive about it. I'm not naming people, but some people over here love that shot. I'll shut up about it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to show on the whole, like the camera shots, the like just kind of delving a little deeper into what we were talking about. I think it was like a week or two ago, and just kind of showing how you get these shots and what kind of equipment you can use, some of the techniques. A lot of the videos are in the syllabus and in the playlist. They have a lot more like in-depth descriptions and kind of show you behind the scenes of how they're capturing these kinds of shots. So they're pretty cool. But yeah, like I just wanted to show you guys like how all these things work and what you can do with them. How they actually capture all this stuff, since you can't really tell until you start looking into it. So the last thing I'm going to do is just kind of go over what we're going over next week. So Brian was talking a lot about the 180-degree rule. It is a very important rule in filmmaking, and it is to keep your audience from not getting confused about the how do I say this? Not to get confused about where everything is at, the geometry of the scene. It's to keep everything on one side, kind of like if you're at a play and you can move the camera anywhere in the audience. You can move it even to the side of the stage, but you can't get on top of that stage and turn it around without doing some kind of camera tricks to get it there. Because otherwise it's going to be jarring to the audience, because all of a sudden the person's going to be looking the other way. They're going to be on the opposite side of the room from what they just saw. And so this 180-degree rule is really important when you have action taking place and you want to keep everything on one side of this invisible line. And we'll learn more about that. Then we're going to learn more about setting up a shot list, using like either a storyboard or just the script to create a shot list, and going over that. 30-degree rule, that's mostly used in like editing, and also you want to use it in a lot of people use it on set they're about 30 degrees away from the other camera, and they use maybe like a close-up or a medium shot, and then with their other camera they do like a wider angle or extreme close-up or something. And it's just to keep everything from not moving too far between edits. And so we'll learn more about this 30-degree rule, why it's used. And then filming behind the scenes, that's not really like cinematography exactly, but I figured I'd shove it in here since it's to do with cameras. I didn't really know where else to put it. It's just like, when to film it, how to film it, that kind of stuff. And then the last thing we have is working with child actors, like some of the rules or some of the precautions you need to take when working with them, and stuff like that. So we'll just learn working with child actors. But
Yeah,
other
no, that
than
makes sense.
Apparently,
It's gonna add
apparently,
rules, obviously.
What was that?
apparently Brian has some experience in that and will probably have a bit to say.
Working with child actors?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He said he's worked with a few.
I've worked with a couple. They're okay. Don't.
Okay.
Okay. They're not as terrible as people say.
No, they can be. Oh, they
So
can-
next
they can be.
Thursday, guys, we're going to
Okay.
be talking about all this stuff. So you guys have a week to look all this stuff up, and then we can talk about it next Thursday. Monday, we're not going to be having our meeting because Monday is Memorial Day.
Crap, I was gonna ask everyone in the meeting about like the movie. I guess I'll do research and see, because now most of them are left.
So Monday, we're not going to be having the meeting. We're going to move it to Tuesday. So next Tuesday, we're going to have the meeting. We're going to watch a film. I guess Priscilla will look into it and we'll find one. I think there's Blade Runner on one.
I have a few that everyone already said that they would like, and
We're not going to be
see if I can
recording
find
the meeting next week because it's a movie. So obviously we're not going to record it.
And also, if you can't make it on Tuesday, that's fine. Just try to watch it by yourself and come and comment in the next meeting. Because I know some people said they can't make Tuesday.
Yeah, so we're going to be watching the film and we're going to be looking at it from a cinematography point of view. We're going to be looking at the different camera angles, movement, blocking, and the flow, and how it all works together to really portray that scene and that emotion. And we're going to pause like every 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and we're going to talk about some of the scenes, and then we're going to watch the next 30 minutes and pause. And
I like that.
And we're
We
going to
might not be able to get through the whole movie, obviously, because it's depending on the movie we pick, it might be like 2.5 hours long. But we'll try to get to.
Go for about 2.5 hours now. So
yeah, but if we're stopping every 30 minutes to comment, that's what, another extra 20, 30 minutes?
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't know. We'll see. But we'll just do that to kind of talk about the camera movements, some of the scenes that really stuck out, or some of the moments or the shots that really stuck out, and why. And if they worked with the story, maybe they'll find things that were like, oh, that was just there to look cool. So we'll discuss all of that. And then we're going to...
that looked cool, but had nothing to do with the story.
Yes. And then we're going to take a scene from that movie and we are going to try to mimic the camera movement. It'll be later on, a few weeks after this, but we're going to try to take that scene and mimic the camera movement, not worrying about lighting, not worrying about anything else, just the camera movement, to try to mimic it with whatever we have available, whether we have a phone or a camera, whatever we have. We're going to try to mimic it as best we can, get creative, and try to make it look the same, as close as we can get to the camera movement, the blocking, and the composition.
Ryan, you probably won't do the exercise, but if you do, no cheating. Using fancy lighting and whatnot.
I mean, I can't not cheat. Like, that's what I do.
Cheating is being creative in filmmaking. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just, I said it earlier, but I'm going to either find like a 2-page scene, or I'm going to just kind of write one out where we're going to all create a storyboard based off of it. And I'll give you guys until, what did I say? You remember what I said? Oh, 3 weeks, into June 14th. By June 14th. So I'll send that out either tomorrow or Saturday. And then June 14th, we'll view everybody's different storyboards and what they came up with from that scene, if you guys are able to do that assignment. I think that'll be really good to look into all this stuff, and especially after we learn the 180-degree rule and all these other filming things, we'll be able to know really.
No, I love it. Yeah, no, this is great. I'm looking forward to doing the exercises, because that's, you digest all of the information and then you put it into action, and then, it's there for life. It's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like that's why I love doing. I love learning the theory first, and then discussing it with people who have done it, and then actually trying it for yourself, because getting that hands-on
works.
experience is just it's really great.
It really is, and I very much appreciate that angle.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop the recording there.
Guys,